His fingers could no longer feel the spoon. Soral Hajin watched as the wooden spoon slipped from his hand and clattered against the rim of the bowl of rice porridge. Honey and dates. His favorite. Yoon Sori stood by the door with her back straight and her expression impassive. She knew. She had always known. The 13-year-old girl with the third blood seal on her collarbone turned toward the door and announced that he had finished all the porridge. Grand Duchess Mo Hong Ryeon entered the chambers. 6 female guards of the Mo clan stood behind her. The 6th seal glowed gold on her collarbone, brighter than the morning sun streaming through the windows. Hong Ryeon smiled the way women do who need no explanation of their power. She leaned toward him and adjusted his collar. A motherly gesture. Warm fingers. She said his mother was weak and sentimental, that the empire had no need for a prince incapable of wielding a spear. But the empire needed his blood for the line. In an hour, the physicians would sever the tendons in his wrists and ankles. He would live. He would not rule. He would produce heirs, yes. She said there was Sun Yan root in his porridge that he would be unable to resist, and that this was a mistake. Hajin felt numbness creeping up his forearms. His legs would no longer obey him. He didn't scream. He didn't call for his mother's guards. His mother's guards stood behind the door and didn't move because the 6th seal overrides any order except that of the 7th. And his mother was in the temple, praying for his health, an irony he would appreciate later. Sori looked up at him for the first time. There was no guilt in her eyes, only a slight contempt for someone who had been foolish enough to trust. The guards lifted him off the pillows, a 14-year-old boy weighing 40 kilograms. For women with the 3rd seal, this was like lifting a cat. They carried him down the corridor past murals of phoenixes, past windows from which the scent of plums wafted, past the room where his mother kept his first drawings, the physician's chamber, a table, straps, 2 physicians with instruments that gleamed like jewelry. Hajin lay on his back and stared at the ceiling. The root of sleep was at work. His body felt like a stranger's, but his mind was clear. Strangely clear. Clearer than ever before in the 14 years of his life. Because in that very second, he ceased to be Soral Hajin, the sickly prince, the only son, the 4th of 4 children, 3 of whom didn't live to see their 5th birthday. He remembered. Everything, all at once. Han Do-yeon, 41 years old, chief analyst at the Ministry of Unification. 7 cups of coffee. A stroke. A memo on land reform that he never finished. The Balkans. Rwanda. 243 classified reports. And the entire body of 21st century knowledge that flooded into his consciousness like water into a ship's hold. The first cut. Right wrist. He felt no pain. The nerve root was numb. Mercy. The second cut. Left wrist. The doctor worked meticulously. Prefe. Do not kill. Maim. Third. Right ankle. Fourth. Left. 4 incisions. 4 tendons. 4 ends to his life as an heir. Hajin lay there and counted. Not because of the pain. He was counting differently. The root is numb. Aconite family. Neuromuscular blocker. Half-life at his body weight is approximately 8 hours. Tendons. Complete ruptures with no attempt at suturing. With proper immobilization and a collagen-rich diet. Approximately 18 months until partial recovery. 24 until full functional recovery. This is knowledge that the local doctors won't be able to piece together because they lack a systematic approach to rehabilitation. They have ointments and compounds. He has 21st century orthopedics in his head. He's already done the math. The registry was launched the moment the first incision was made. Grand Duchess Mo Hong Ryeon, 38 years old, 6th seal. Regent while her sister is ill. Motivation. Power. Not the throne. She already holds the throne de facto. She needs legitimacy. Maiming her nephew isn't cruelty, it's a personnel decision. To remove the sole male heir from the line of succession without killing him, because a dead prince means an investigation. A cripple is a medical case. Yoon Sori, 13 years old, 3rd seal. Wet nurse. Motivation. The Yun clan owed the Mo clan 400 ingots for losing a border dispute. Sori didn't betray him out of spite. She paid off the family debt with his trust. The price was 400 silver ingots. He remembered that number. It would come in handy. The Mo clan's female guards. 4 units, third seal each. Total weight of seals in the room. Hongryong 6th. 4 guards at the 3rd level. Total. 24 units of Inriang. Against his 0. 0. Control index. 0. Blood seal. Absent. The man. Mobility in 1 hour. 0. Assets. 0. He lay on the table in a pool of his own blood, and the only thing he had was a head that contained everything humanity had learned over 3,000 years about how to build states from ruins. The healers bandaged his wounds. They carried him to a small, windowless room on the ground floor, a former storage room for winter blankets, now his ward. A mat, a jug of water, a chamber pot. The door closed. Darkness. Silence. Hajin lay on his back, unable to move his arms or legs. 14 years old. A prince without a throne. A cripple without a future. A man in a world where men are mere furniture. He closed his eyes. The registry was at work. In the darkness behind his closed eyelids, he was constructing a table. Column 1. Names. Mo Huryong. Yun Sori. Baek Solran. Head of the Mo clan. 4 female guards. 2 healers. Column 2. Debts. Column 3. Fears. Column 4. Price. He couldn't hold a pen. He memorized. Every name, every face, every number. Somewhere upstairs, Princess Hongryong was having dinner and telling her sister that the boy had fallen down the stairs. An accident. The physicians had done their best. Empress Yeonhee was crying. The 7th seal on her collarbone glowed so brightly that it illuminated the tears on her cheeks. The most powerful woman of the dynasty could not protect her own son. Because power in Hwalyon was measured by the seals, and the seals measured only one thing: the ability to kill. Hajin lay in the darkness and thought in a language that didn't exist here. He thought in Korean, of the 21st century. He thought he was memorizing. A name, a face, an hour, a day. That he would return all of this with interest, itemized in the budget. Then he fell asleep. In his dream, he saw neither phoenixes nor swords. He saw an Excel spreadsheet with 3,000 rows, and in each row was the name of a person who owed him money. For 3 days, he lay in the darkness and listened. Footsteps overhead. Heavy. Light. Hurried. Lazy. The registrar was counting. Heavy footsteps in boots with metal toe caps. Female guards. The changing of the guard 4 times a day. Light footsteps in soft slippers. Maids, they walk in pairs, never alone. Hurried footsteps. Couriers. Twice a day, morning and evening. Lazy footsteps. Cooks, after lunch. They brought him food twice a day. Watery porridge without salt. A middle-aged woman with an expressionless face. She didn't say a word. She set down the bowl. She checked his bandages. She left. On the 4th day, he spoke. He asked her name. She didn't answer. On the 5th day, he asked again. She said she wasn't allowed to talk to him. He asked who had forbidden it. She remained silent. But her silence was different this time. Not out of fear, out of doubt. The registrar made a note of it. On the 6th day, he said he knew her right knee was hurting. She froze. He explained, when she bends down to set the bowl down, she always puts her left knee down first and shifts her weight onto her left arm. Her right leg stays straight. A classic compensatory pattern for a torn medial meniscus. He didn't use those words. He put it more simply. He said the inside of her knee was swollen and hurt when she bent it. He said that if she applied a cloth soaked in cold water in the mornings and a warm one at night, it would get better in 2 weeks. The woman's name was Do Hyun, 43 years old. No seal. A widow. 2 daughters. The younger one was 5, the older one was 9. On the 7th day, Hyun brought him porridge with salt. On the 8th, she said that his mother had tried to visit him, but Princess Hongryun had forbidden visits during his recovery. Empress Yeonhee, 7th seal. She was unable to enter the storeroom to see her own son, because formally Hongryun was in charge of his treatment, and protocol forbade interference in the regent's medical decisions. The law, the very same law he would rewrite a year later. But now he lay on a mat and couldn't move his fingers. 15% mobility. Neck, eyes, lips, tongue. Everything else was dead. The Sunyeon root had been expelled from his body on the 3rd day, but the tendons had been cleanly severed. The local doctors don't know how to suture tendons. They know how to cut. They don't know how to repair. But Hajin knew. From Han Do-yeon's mind, orthopedic surgery. Tendons heal on their own if the ends are close enough together, if the limb is immobilized, if the diet contains enough protein, if there is no infection. 4 conditions. 4 tasks for a man who can't move his hands. He started with Hyun. He asked her to bandage the wounds in a specific way, tightly immobilized in a flexed position. Hyuna didn't ask how he knew. She was the kind of person who recognized the truth by the result, not by the explanation. 2 weeks later, he could wiggle the thumb of his left hand. 1 finger. Just 1. He was so happy he almost laughed. Then he remembered Hongryun's face, and his happiness turned into arithmetic. 3 weeks, he could clench his left fist. Weakly. Like a baby. But he could. Hyuna watched him, and for the first time in 20 days, her blank expression changed. She didn't understand. The doctors had said his hands were dead forever. Hajin told her that if she told anyone about his fingers, he wouldn't be able to protect her. Not because he didn't want to, but because he was still too weak. Hyuna nodded. She understood weakness. Her whole life had been weakness. Without the seal. A widow. 2 daughters whom any clan could take by right of lineage. In Hwalmyeon's world, a woman without the seal is little better than a man. He began to build a network, starting with 1 person, with Hyuna. He asked her to memorize the names of the guards on duty at his door, the names of the maids who passed by, the names of the couriers. Hyuna had a poor memory. He taught her mnemonics, to associate the first syllable of a name with an object in the room, the door, a bowl, a pitcher. A week later, Hyuna was bringing him 5 names a day. Guard Won Ari, 3rd seal, on duty every other day. Guard Park Soo-yeon, 2nd seal, on duty every 3rd day. Maidservant Lee Chae, no seal, brings linens to the princess's chambers every morning. Names, names, names. The register was filling up. By the end of the 1st month, he had 47 names. 47 people inside the palace, each with their seal and schedule. This wasn't espionage, it was a census. The first one of his life in this world. At the end of the 4th week, Yoon So-ri arrived. She entered without knocking. She stood in the doorway. She looked at him. He was lying on a mat. His arms were at his sides under the blanket. She couldn't see that he could wiggle his fingers. Good. Sori said that Princess Hongryun was pleased with his behavior, that he was quiet, obedient, that if he remained just as quiet for another 6 months, he would be allowed to go out into the garden, with an escort. She said this in an even voice, without anger, without pity. A report. The overseer's report. Hajin looked at her and saw the registry. Yoon So-ri. 13 years old, 3rd seal. The Yoon clan. The clan's debt to the Mo clan. 400 silver ingots. Father unknown. Mother died when Sori was 7. The prince's wet nurse since birth. 8 years by his side. For 8 years, she knew he loved honey, and she used that to her advantage. The registry gave no judgments. The registry gave numbers. 400 ingots. That was the price of his trust. He said nothing to her. He just watched. Sori turned and walked away. A minute later, he heard her footsteps quicken. She was almost running. The registry recorded it. She felt uncomfortable. This wasn't remorse, it was discomfort. A person who feels remorse slows down. A person who feels awkward speeds up. Hajin closed his eyes. In the back of his mind, Han Doyon was sifting through files. The Hwalmyong Empire, a matriarchal system, the 9 great clans, the economy, primitive, roads, virtually non-existent, postal service, horseback couriers with no unified route system, census, not conducted in 70 years, tax system, each clan collects its own. The central government has no idea how much it receives. Units of measurement, different in every province. This isn't a state. It's feudal chaos bound by magical seals and fear of those who bear them. Khan Doyon had seen this before. Rwanda after the genocide. Bosnia after Dayton. Destroyed institutions. A lack of trust. Elites who think in terms of clans rather than citizenship. He knew what to do about it. Template number 4. Restoring basic institutions in a post-conflict society. Step 1. A census. Step 2. A unified system of measurement. Step 3. The postal service. Step 4. Tax reform. Step 5. Education. 5 steps. Each requires people, money, time. He had one person, Hyona. 0 money. Time, he didn't know how much he had. Princess Hongryan could change her mind at any moment and order him to be smothered with a pillow. He had to prove his worth before she decided he was a threat. 5 weeks after his injury, a woman he wasn't expecting entered his storeroom. Short, thin, with eyes that assessed everything they saw. Cho Minhua, senior herald of the court, keeper of the protocols, without the seal. She brought him a book, the Code of Court Law. She said the Empress had asked her to deliver it, quietly, without drawing attention. Hajin looked at the book, at Minhua, at the book, the Code of Laws. 700 pages, precedents spanning 400 years. This was no consolation from his mother, it was a weapon. Minhua placed the book next to his mat and left without saying another word. Hajin asked Hyun to turn the pages for him. He read, slowly, 20 pages a day. The registrar recorded every precedent, every loophole, every contradiction. On page 312, he found the first one, the law of the blood trial, an ancient ritual. A male heir must prove his right to the throne in a duel with a female warrior of the 5th seal. Refusal is tantamount to abdication. But on page 314, a note in small handwriting, a 200-year-old precedent. If the heir is maimed through the fault of a member of the ruling family, the trial may be replaced with an alternative form of proof of competence. The alternative form is not specified. Not specified. It was a door. Locked. But there. Hajin smiled. For the first time in 35 days. He told Hyone that he would need paper tomorrow, a quill, and ink. She asked why. He replied that he was going to write a budget. The paper arrived 2 days later. Rough. Yellowish. It smelled of wormwood. The quill was old, with a split tip. The ink was runny. Hajin gripped the quill with his left hand. His fingers trembled. The first letter came out crooked, like a child's drawing. The second was slightly straighter. The third slanted to one side. He wrote for 3 hours. 1 line. 17 characters. The Soral Provincial Administration Index. Current value? Unknown. That was the beginning. Hyona watched him struggle and said nothing. Then she asked why a crippled prince would need to calculate taxes. He replied that he wasn't calculating taxes, that he was building a weapon the likes of which had never been seen here. She didn't understand. He didn't bother to explain. A week later, he could write 10 lines a day. 2 weeks later, 30. His left hand functioned at 40% capacity, his right at 10. He did everything with his left. On the back of the pages of the Code of Laws, he wrote down everything he knew. The double-entry bookkeeping system, the basics of demographic record keeping, the formula for calculating road capacity. a route map for the courier service, the principles of substitution ciphering. He didn't sleep at night. He lay in the dark and mapped out Valmon in his head. 64 provinces, 9 great clans. Each controls between 3 and 11 provinces. The central Soral dynasty. 4 provinces, the fewest of all, because the Sorals sat on the throne and believed that the throne was enough. Han Doyon knew that a throne without resources is just a chair. A beautiful one, but a chair. At the end of the 6th week, what Hajin had been waiting for happened. But not quite yet. A living person who wasn't on his list entered his storeroom. A woman. Young. 16 years old. Thin. Her hands were calloused from counting. On her collarbone was a dull first seal, a bronze facet, the bare minimum. She said her name was Jang Bora, that she was the daughter of a salt merchant, that her father had been killed 2 years ago during the division of the Salt Lake between the Cho and Baek clans, that she had come because Herald Cho Minhua had told her that the prince needed someone who could count. Hajin looked at her. The registry kicked in. Jang Bora, bastard, mother unknown, father killed in a trade dispute, first seal. In the Hwalmyeon hierarchy, that's nothing. The Bronze Edge grants the right to bear arms and nothing else. No land, no vote, no seat on the clan council. But she knows how to count. He asked what 347 multiplied by 23 would be. She answered in 4 seconds. 7,981. Correct. He asked how many sacks of grain it would take to feed a village of 200 households for 3 winter months, at a rate of 2 buckets per household per day. She thought for 9 seconds. She answered, 1,800 using a standard bucket. He clarified that a standard bucket in Soral province was 1/3 larger than one in Baek province. She recalculated. 1,200 using a Soral bucket. Correct. For the first time in a month and a half, Hajin felt something resembling hope. But Han Do-yeon nipped that feeling in the bud. Hope is an emotion. Emotions are noise. He needed a signal. He told Bora that he had a job, that the job was dangerous, that if Princess Hongrion found out, Bora would lose her hands. Not a metaphor, her hands. Bora looked at her calluses, then at his bandaged wrists. She said she hadn't come for safety. He nodded. The first assignment, a census of Soral province. 4 districts, the capital and 3 suburban districts. Number of households, number of residents, number of children, number of literate people, length of roads, condition of bridges, number of wells, number of blacksmiths, number of doctors. Bora asked why. He replied that you can't govern what you can't see. She left at dawn. She returned 10 days later, with a stack of sheets covered in small handwriting. Hajin read for 3 hours. Soral province, capital district, 11,000 households, 38,000 residents, 4% literate, 17 RE of paved roads, 3 stone bridges, 11 wooden bridges. Of the 11, 7 are repair. 41 public wells. Of the 41, 12 are contaminated by slaughterhouse effluent. 8 blacksmith shops. 2 doctors for the entire district. 2 doctors for 38,000 people. Han Do-yeon closed his eyes for a second. Things were better in Rwanda after the genocide. He began to draw up a budget, a real budget, with revenue and expenditure sections, with a 12-month forecast. The revenue section showed 0. He didn't have a single coin. But he knew where to get the initial funds. The Salt Lake. A 20-year dispute between the Cho and Baek clans. 4,000 dead. No resolution. Because female warriors settle disputes with swords, and swords cannot divide lakes. He can. He dictated a note to Bora. Addressee, Empress Soral Yeon-hee. Content. The prince asks his mother to allow him to attend the hearing on the Cho and Baek dispute as an observer. He attached a calculation. 1 page. 3 options for dividing the lake, indicating the annual income for each clan and for the crown. Option 1. Geographical. Poor. The northern shore is shallow. The southern shore is deep. Unequal conditions. Inevitable new conflict in 5 years. Option 2. Monetary compensation. Moderate. Someone pays. Someone concedes. Humiliation for the loser. Hidden discontent. Option 3. Seasonal division with shared infrastructure. Optimal. The Choi harvest during the dry season. The Beck during the rainy season. A shared caravanserai. Tolls for both. The total profit is higher than with any other division. Plus, the Crown receives a share from the caravanserai. The first revenue for the governance index. Bora read the note and looked at him for a long time. She asked how he knew that. He replied that he had read books. She said there was nothing like that in Hwalmyeon's books. He remained silent. The note was sent. 2 days later, a reply arrived. Not from his mother, from Herald Cho Min-hwa. One word. Yes. The third month. The grand hall of the small council. Hajin was carried in on a stretcher by 4 servants. He lay on pillows dressed in simple gray clothes. His hands were under the blanket. His legs were motionless. The hall was half empty. The feud between Choe and Beck was a long-standing sore that everyone was tired of hearing about. The head of the Choe clan, Choe Nam-hee, arrived, the 5th seal, and the head of the Beck clan, Beck Sol-ran, the 7th seal, 2 old warriors who had been slaughtering each other's people for 20 years over a puddle of salt. They looked at the stretcher carrying the crippled prince, and Cho Nam-hee laughed. She said the court had sent the boy because the adults were tired of listening. Beck Sol-ran didn't laugh. She looked at Hajin. Her eyes were like a hawk's. The 7th seal, the only one equal to the Empress. She saw something, or sensed it. Hajin asked Bora to unfold the map. Bora stood up. The first seal, the bronze edge. Before the 2 matriarchs with a combined seal weight of 12,000. Her hands did not tremble. She unfolded the map. Hajin spoke for 20 minutes, quietly, monotonously, like a lecture, without grandstanding, without calls for peace, just numbers. The depth of the brine in the northern part, 0.7 meters during the dry season, 1.4 during the rainy season. The southern part, 1.2 and 2.1 respectively. Optimal yield occurs at depths greater than 0.9. Therefore, the north is more profitable during the dry season, the south during the rainy season. If the territory is divided not by the shore but by season, both clans will achieve maximum output without overlapping territorially during peak months. A caravanserai on the isthmus. Joint security. Let's go for 30% of transit fees. Cho receives an index of plus 180. Beck, plus 165. The Crown, plus 95 from each annually. He fell silent. Cho Nam-hee stopped laughing. She was looking at the map. 20 years. 4,000 corpses. And this young boy on a stretcher is laying it all out on a single sheet of paper like a problem for a scribe. Beck Sol-ran stood up. She walked over to the map. She ran her finger along the line marking the seasonal boundary. She looked at Hajin. She said one word. Acceptable. Cho Nam-hee nodded a minute later. Both women signed the document. The court scribe was supposed to announce the result. He didn't know what to do. The seals hadn't changed here. The land hadn't been transferred. This was neither a military victory nor a marriage contract. It was something new. Cho Min-hwa rose from her seat in the corner of the hall. She announced it. Prince Hajin's administration index, 440. For the first time. In the hall. Out loud. A number that no one could compare to anything. Beck Sol-ran turned her head. She looked at Min-hwa. Then at Hajin. Then she left the hall without saying another word. In the far corner sat a woman whom Hajin had noticed as soon as he entered. Mo Hong-ryeon. She had arrived unnoticed. She sat in the shadows behind a column, watching, listening. When Min-hwa said the number 440, Hong-ryeon stopped smiling. Hajin saw it. The registrar recorded it. End of smile. Beginning of calculation. She would reassess the threat, in a day or two, and send a reply. They were carrying him back to the storeroom. Bora walked beside him. She was silent. Then she said he'd succeeded. Hajin didn't answer. He knew he'd succeeded, and he knew that things had become more dangerous now. 440. The number was small, almost laughable compared to the weight of seals of any clan. But it existed, and it had been spoken. For the first time in the history of Valmon, someone had counted not the power of the sword, but the power of a decision. Princess Honryon understood this. Hajin, lying on the stretcher, stared at the ceiling and counted down the days until her counterattack. Honryon's response came 3 days later. Not with a sword, not with poison. On paper. A decree from the regent appointing an inspection commission to verify the legality of the decision regarding the Salt Lake. 3 judges, all from provinces under the control of the Mo clan, all appointed personally by Honryon. The commission had the authority to annul the agreement and return the dispute to a stalemate. Hajin lay on a mat and read the decree that Hyuna held up in front of his face. The registry was in motion. 3 judges. First, Mo Jenny, the princess's cousin. 4th seal, a debt to the clan treasury, 700 ingots for the estate's renovation. 2nd, Zhang Meyer, the widow of the garrison commander. 3rd seal, her only daughter attends the temple school on a Mo clan scholarship. 3rd, Nam Un-so, no seal, former treasurer of Kolmak province, dismissed for an accounting error 3 years ago, reinstated by Hongryon a month ago. 3 judges, 3 leads, all point to Hongryon. A standard pattern. Han Do-yeon had seen this in every post-conflict tribunal. Puppet arbitrators. The verdict was written before the hearing, but every lead has a weak link. He called Bora, told her to look for Mo Jenny's IOUs, not with the Mo clan, with the merchants. A woman who's rebuilding an estate for 700 ingots buys her materials. Stone, wood, varnish, roof tiles. One of the suppliers has unpaid bills. Bora was gone for 4 days. She returned with 3 receipts totaling 230 ingots. Mo Jenny hadn't paid 3 workshops for their finishing work. Classic. The aristocracy doesn't pay artisans because artisans are afraid to demand payment. Hajin bought out these receipts through a frontman. Now Mo Jenny owed him, not the workshops. She didn't know that yet. The 2nd judge, Zhang Meyer, the daughter attending the temple school on a Mo scholarship. Hajin couldn't offer an alternative scholarship. He didn't have the money, but he had information. Bora found out that Meyer's daughter had submitted a request 3 months ago to transfer to the capital's academy. The request was rejected personally by the Mo clan secretary, without explanation. Meyer didn't know that the application had even reached the secretary. She thought the academy had rejected it on its own. Hajin asked Hyun to pass a note to Mire, unsigned. The note contained the application number and the name of the secretary who had rejected it. Nothing else. Let her draw her own conclusions. The 3rd judge, Nam Un-so, no seal, former treasurer, suspended for a mistake. Hajin became curious about the error. He asked Bora to find the case file. Bora found it. The error was 18 ingots in the annual report for Kolmak province. 18 ingots. A treasurer with 20 years of experience was suspended for this. Hajin recalculated the report using the figures Bora had obtained. There was no error. It was a setup. Someone had added an extra expense line after Un-so signed the final sheet. The alteration is visible if you know where to look. The ink density is different. The pressure of the pen is different. Un-so didn't make a mistake. She was framed. And Hongryon had cleared her name, which meant that Hongryon had either orchestrated the frame-up or knew about it, and used Un-so as someone who owed her a favor. Hajin dictated a 2nd document to Bora. A complete recalculation of the Kolmak province report for that year, pointing out the alteration, describing the method used to detect it, and including the original figures proving that Un-so was right. He did not send this document to Un-so. He sent it to Cho Min-hwa, the court herald, the keeper of the records. Because the herald at the Hwalmyong court is not a mere town crier, it is the keeper of all documents signed at court. And tampering with an official report is a crime against protocol. Min-hwa was obligated to launch an investigation. She could not refuse. The law, 3 judges, 3 leashes. He bought the first one. He cut the second one. He pulled the third one in the other direction. The commission met a week later. Mo Jenny arrived with a look of confusion on her face. That morning, she had received a copy of her IOAs from a new creditor, an anonymous one. She didn't know who was behind it, but she understood that voting against the SALT agreement now meant risking that the creditor would demand repayment. Jung Meyer arrived with her lips pressed tightly together. She found the Mo clan's secretary. She spoke with him. He didn't deny it. He said that was what the princess had decided. The temple, not the Mo clan, was now paying her daughter's scholarship directly. Mireille didn't know who had arranged this, but she knew who had arranged the opposite. Nam Un So didn't come. Instead, a note arrived. A recusal due to newly discovered circumstances in the Kolmak province case. Minhua launched an investigation, and Un So realized that her reinstatement to Hongrian had not been an act of mercy, but a trap. There weren't enough votes to overturn the decision. Mo Jenny abstained. Jung Meyer voted to uphold the agreement. The commission adjourned. The Lake Agreement held. The administration index remained at 440. It didn't rise, but it didn't fall either. And that was a victory. Because for the first time, Hongrian had struck and missed. Hajin lay on a stretcher, calculating the cost of the operation. 3 receipts. 230 ingots from his future share of the caravanserai. 1 anonymous note. Cost, 0. 1 verification through the Herald. Cost, 0. Total expenses, 230 ingots he didn't yet have. He had spent money he hadn't yet earned. The registry's first debt. He jotted it down in his head in the red column. 2 days after the commission's failure, Hajin received his first income. The caravanserai on the Salt Lake had turned a profit. First month. Duty. 95 ingots to the Soral treasury. Of these, 20%, under a tacit agreement with the Empress Dowager, went to Hajin's account. 19 ingots. His first money of his own in this world. 19 ingots. Han Do-yeon smiled to himself. In his past life, he had managed budgets in the billions of won. Here, his starting capital was 19 pieces of silver. He allocated them instantly. 7 ingots for Hyun and Bora's salaries, their first official pay from the registry. 4 ingots for materials to repair 2 wooden bridges in the capital district. The most rotten ones, the ones that could collapse by winter. 3 ingots for paper and ink. Lots of paper. A great deal. 5 ingots as a reserve. Bora asked why he was repairing the bridges. He replied, "A bridge isn't just a bridge. A bridge is a route. A route is speed. Speed is the index. 2 bridges, plus 20 points to the administration index for improving the transportation network." A laughable figure. But he didn't think in terms of numbers. He thought in terms of precedence. For the first time in Valmon, someone had invested money in a road not to march troops across it, but to boost a number on paper. No one noticed this, except for one person. Baek Solran, head of the Baek clan, the 7th seal. She sent her granddaughter to the capital, a 20-year-old girl, with the 4 seal, with a beautiful face, with a soft voice, with knowledge of 3 types of poison that cannot be detected by standard tests. The granddaughter introduced herself to Hajin as Baek Suhyun. She said she admired his wisdom, that she wanted to learn, that she was ready to serve. Hajin looked at her. The registry, Baek Suhyun, 20 years old, the 4th seal. She arrived 4 days after the commission's decision. Travel time from the province of Baek to the capital, 6 days on horseback. That means she set out 2 days before the commission's decision. That means the order to send her was given before the result was known. Baek Solran did not send her granddaughter in response to Hajin's victory over the commission. She had sent her earlier, after the index was announced. 440. A number that made Solran's hawk-like eyes narrow. Hajin looked at Suhyun. He smiled. He said he was glad and that there would be a place for her. That night, he told Hyun to keep track of the new guests' every move. Every single one. When she sleeps, when she eats, when she writes, when she meets with people. Everything. Hyun nodded. Hajin closed his eyes and thought of Princess Hongrion. Her mission had failed. In a week or two, she'd find a new way to strike, and it would hurt more. But he now had 460 in the index and 19 bars in his pocket. It wasn't much, but Han Do-yeon had built empires from less. In Rwanda, he'd had a notebook and 2 translators. Here, he had the register and a girl with calluses on her hands who could multiply faster than a calculator. The 4th month began with rain. The capital was drowning in mud. The roads turned into rivers. Couriers were 2 days late. Hajin lay on a stretcher by the window. For the first time, he had a window. His mother had secured a transfer from the storeroom to a small room on the 2nd floor of the East Wing, a servant's room, but one with a window and a brazier. Empress Yeonhee did not know what her son was doing. She knew only that he had resolved a dispute that the best court ladies had been unable to resolve for 20 years, and that Princess Hongrion was unhappy about it. That was enough. His mother maneuvered the pieces in the corridors that were accessible to her, and with the 7th seal, many were accessible to her. Hajin looked at the rain and thought about roads. Roads. In Han Do-yeon's mind, they ranked 2nd only to the census. Without roads, there is no mail. Without mail, there is no information. Without information, the registry is blind. He called for Bora. He told her to find him a builder, not a mason, not a carpenter, an engineer, someone who understands how the earth bears weight. Bora searched for 2 weeks. She found him in a provincial tavern 3 days' journey from the capital. Ho Gyong-soo, 50 years old, a man, a former military engineer in the Jeon clan's army, dismissed from service 15 years ago because of his gender, not because of incompetence, because of his gender. In Hwalyeon, a man cannot hold a military position. He can dig trenches, haul stones, count logs, but he cannot command a construction site, even if he builds better than anyone else. For the past 15 years, Gyeongsu had been drinking rice wine and repairing wheels for a few coins. Bora brought him to the capital. Hajin received him in his small room. Gyeongsu entered. He looked at the boy on the stretcher, at his bandaged arms, at his pale face. He smelled of wine and old sweat. Hajin asked him how many stones it would take to pave a road 2 carts wide on clay soil with a 3-degree slope. Gyeongsu froze. Then he sat down on the floor. Then he answered, 240 cartloads using standard-sized cobblestones, 310 using fine gravel with a sandy base. Hajin asked which option was cheaper. Gyeongsu said that gravel was 1/3 cheaper but required drainage ditches. Otherwise, the very first downpour would wash it away. Hajin asked how much the ditch per ri. Gyeongsu named a figure. Hajin did the math in his head. Crushed stone with drainage was 22% cheaper than cobblestones and lasted 7 years longer, assuming annual maintenance costing 2 ingots per ri. Gyeongsu looked at him. Then he said that in 30 years of work, no one had ever asked him about. No one. The female warriors built roads for the army to pass through just once. Then the road would rot. They'd build a new one. Hajin said he built roads for the male to travel on. Every day. For 10 years straight. Gyeongsu was silent for a long time. Then he asked how much he paid. Hajin said 3 ingots a month. Gyeongsu earned half an ingot. He didn't agree because of the money. Hajin could see that. He agreed because, for the first time in 15 years, someone had asked him about drainage. The team had grown. Hyuna, intelligence inside the palace. Bora, census and treasury. Gyeongsu, infrastructure. 3 people. No seal. A man. And a girl with the first seal. The team's total seal weight. 1. 1 against thousands. Hajin began building a road. The first section. 7 ri from the eastern gate of the capital to the village of Cheongmok. Why that one in particular? Because Cheongmok was home to the only paper workshop in the province. Paper. Lots of paper. The road to paper. Gyeongsu hired 20 men from the suburbs. Men. Because men's labor cost 4 times less than women's. Women with the seal didn't dig ditches. Men did. For coins. Hajin paid them twice as much as usual. 1 ingot per week for all of them. For them, it was a fortune. For his budget, it was an investment. 3 weeks later, the road was ready. 7 ri of gravel with drainage ditches, smooth and sturdy. The first road in Soral province built not for the army, but for wagons carrying paper. The index rose. From 460 to 600. The numbers were small. Small as seeds. At the same time, Hajin was doing what he could not put off. Yoon Sori, his foster sister. A traitor. She lived in the palace, in the servants' quarters of the Mo clan. Formally, she was Hanryeon's property, payment for the Yu clan's debt. 400 silver ingots. Hajin asked Bora to find that IOU. Bora searched for a week. The IOU was kept in the Mo clan's archives in Mosan province. Hajin couldn't get there, but he could get a copy. Every promissory note between clans was registered at court. Herald Cho Min-hwa, keeper of the records. Hajin asked Min-hwa via a note. A copy of the promissory note. The Yoon clan, 400 ingots. The Mo clan, creditor. Min-hwa sent the copy the next day. Hajin read it. The promissory note had been drawn up 14 years ago, 2 months before his birth. Interest, 3 per year. Over 14 years, 680 ingots of interest had accrued. In total, the Yoon clan owes the Mo clan 1,080 ingots. The Yoon clan is small, 3 villages, 200 households, annual income of about 100 ingots. They will never pay off this debt. Yoon Sori would belong to the Mo clan until he died, or until someone redeemed the promissory note. Hajin did the math. 1,080 ingots. He had 34. 2 months' income from the caravanserai. He couldn't buy the promissory note. Not yet. But he could do that else. He wrote to Hanryeon, directly, personally, through the court's official channels. The note was brief. Prince Soral Hajin hereby notifies the regent mother that he intends to redeem the Yoon clan's debt receipt in the amount of 1,080 ingots in the future. According to court law, a notice of intent is recorded by a herald and grants the notifier the right of first refusal for 1 year. 1 year. Hanryeon could not sell Sori to another clan or increase the debt while the notice was in effect. The law. The very same code that Min-hwa had brought. Page 171, the paragraph on the preferential right of a debtor's relative. Hajin was not a relative of the Yoon clan, but Yoon Sori was his foster sister. And according to paragraph 173, a foster relationship is equivalent to a blood relationship in matters of debt obligations. 2 lines in a 400-year-old law. 2 lines that no one had read because men have no property rights. But men do have the right to be notified. It was written in such small print that Hajin could barely find it. Hanryeon received the note. Hyuna reported that the princess had read it over dinner. That she hadn't broken anything. She hadn't shouted. She'd simply set the note aside and continued eating. Hajin knew what that meant. Hanryeon isn't angry when she shouts. Hanryeon is angry when she is silent. The silence that followed the note was more dangerous than any scream. But the note had been officially recorded. Min-hwa entered it into the court registry. The fact existed. And Hanryeon could not revoke it without breaking the law in front of all 9 clans. The next day, Hajin asked Hyun to bring Yoon Sori. Sori came. She stood by the door, just like the first time. Her back was straight, her face was composed, but her eyes were different. Back then they held contempt. Now they held a question. Hajin told her that he had filed a notice to redeem her debt. That in a year, he would buy the promissory note and the Yoon clan would be free. Sori remained silent. He said he wasn't doing this out of kindness. That kindness was a currency he didn't possess. He was doing this because he needed her. Her eyes, her ears, her third seal, which gave her access to rooms that men and women without the seal could not enter.
He told her that she would have to come to him every morning and tell him everything she had seen and heard in Hongryon's chambers the day before. Every morning, without exception. That he would make her the head of his intelligence unit, and that she would receive a salary, 5 ingots a month, more than most landless female warriors of the Third Seal earn. Sori remained silent. Then she asked why he trusted her. After all, she had already betrayed him once. Hajin replied that he didn't trust her, that trust was something he had 14 years ago.
Now he had something more reliable. A promissory note. As long as the Yun clan's debt exists, Sori is bound to him more tightly than by any oath. And she knows it. And he knows it. And both know that the other knows. It's not trust. It's a contract. Sori looked at him for a long time. Then she said that the porridge had been made with honey and dates because she knew he loved honey. That it was the only thing she could do, to make his last breakfast just the way he liked it. Hajin didn't blink. He said he remembered the taste of honey, that he remembered it every day, and that when he sits down to breakfast with her, there will be a receipt for 1,080 ingots on the table between them, crossed out in red ink. And that morning, the porridge will be without honey, because he no longer eats sweets. Sori bowed. She left. In the morning, she returned. She reported that Honryong had summoned the 4 garrison commanders, that a map of the provinces with red markings lay on the princess's table, that the conversation was about couriers, some couriers in the eastern provinces. Hajin listened. He recorded the details in the register, red markings on the map, couriers in the eastern provinces. Hongryon had begun to look into his roads, his postal routes, which didn't yet exist, but which she had already seen in his plans, because someone had told her. Who? Hajin closed his eyes. 4 people knew about his plans: Hyun-ah, Bora, Gyeongsu, and Baek Soo-hyun, that very granddaughter of Solran whom he had taken in and placed under surveillance. Soo-hyun had been living at court for 3 weeks already. She was perfect, polite, quiet. She helped Bora with the calculations. She brought Hajin tea. Every evening she went to her room. Hyuna kept watch. Soo-hyun didn't meet with anyone suspicious. She didn't send any notes. She didn't leave the palace. Clean. Too clean. Hajin knew that a person who had been living perfectly for 3 weeks was a person who had been hiding something so well for 3 weeks that it was impossible to detect using standard methods. He didn't try to find out exactly what she was hiding. Instead, he fed her false information. He told her to her face that he was planning to build a second road south to Mangyun port. Not to the east, to the south. If Hongryon started showing interest in the southern route in a week, it meant Soo-hyun was passing on information. If she continued to look east, it meant the leak was coming from another source. 5 days later, Sori reported back. Hongryon had summoned the commander of Mangyun port, the southern route, Soo-hyun. Hajin wasn't surprised. He was almost disappointed. The hawk grandmother had sent her dove granddaughter. Predictable, but useful. Now he had a channel for disinformation. So-hyun thought she was spying on Solran. Hajin knew she was spying on him. Every word he said in her presence would reach Solran and, through Solran, Hongryon. It wasn't a weapon. It was a telegraph. His telegraph. Administration Index, 600. Mobility 30%. His left hand was working. His right was starting to. He could sit. He couldn't stand. The team. 5 people. Hyuna, Bora, Gyeongsu, Sori, Soo-hyun, who didn't know she was working for him. 5 against the Empire. He looked out the window at the rain. Somewhere in the upper floor chambers, Hongryon was studying a map marked in red and planning an attack on the roads he hadn't built yet. She was in a hurry. That was good. A hasty enemy makes mistakes. And every mistake the enemy makes is an entry in the register that can be cashed in later. Hajin took a quill in his left hand and wrote a single number in the upper corner of a blank sheet of paper. 9,000. The target for 12 months. 9,000 units of the management index. A number that no one in Hwalyemyeon had ever seen, because no one had ever counted it. The 5th month. Hajin was sitting. For the first time in 4 months, his back was straight without support. The pillows were still there, but he wasn't leaning back against them. He was sitting on his own. His spine was holding him up. His legs were gone. His right hand began to grip the pen. Weakly, crookedly, but on its own. 35% mobility. He didn't show this to anyone but Hyuna. To the court, he remained a cripple on a stretcher. To Hongrion, all the more so. Let her think he's a log with a voice. A log that, for some reason, knows how to count. Morning. Sori arrived with a report. Hongrion had spent 3 hours yesterday with the head of the Pure Fire Temple Order, Priestess Quan Do-hee, 5th Seal, Keeper of the Blood Rituals, the very one who conducts the blood trial. Hajin froze. Not on the outside, on the inside. The Keeper opened the file. The blood trial. An ancient ritual. A male heir must prove his right in a duel with a female warrior of the 5th Seal. Refusal is tantamount to renunciation. He knew that Hongrion would turn to this lever sooner or later. The question was when. Now he knew when. Soon. Sori added a detail. Quan Do-hee was leaving the palace with a sealed scroll. The scroll was being carried by Hongryon's personal messenger. Hajin asked where the messenger had gone. Sori didn't know. He turned to Hyun. Find out the messenger's route. Through whoever you want. By evening. Hyun left. She returned before sunset. The messenger had gone to the Temple of Pure Fire, a 3-day journey north, the temple where the originals of all the ritual codices. Hongrion requested that the blood trial be conducted, officially, through the temple, bypassing the court, bypassing the empress. Because, according to ritual law, the temple has autonomy in matters of the seal and succession. The empress cannot veto the temple's decision. It was a clever move. Hajin acknowledged this. Hongrion did not go through the court's legal channels, where Herald Minhua could have blocked the process. She went through the temple, where an obedient priestess awaited her. A 2-pronged attack. The ritual will be scheduled. Hajin won't be able to physically face the duel. He'll refuse. Abdication. The end. The registrar calculated 6 months until the ritual. The standard preparation period. That meant the trial would be scheduled for the 10th or 11th month. He had 5 months. 5 months to rewrite the rules of the game he was being forced to play. Page 314 of the Code of Laws. A 200-year-old precedent. If an heir is maimed through the fault of a member of the ruling family, the trial may be replaced by an alternative form. The alternative form was not specified. He had already found the door. Now he had to build a room behind it. He called Bora. He gave her a task, to find every mention of this precedent in the court archives, every comment, every footnote, every interpretation over the past 200 years. Bora went to the archives and disappeared for 4 days. She returned with a stack of scrolls, 16 documents. Hajin read for 2 days straight. He slept for 4 hours. He ate without getting up from his pillows. Bora turned the pages. 12 of the 16 documents were empty repetitions. 3 contained interpretations by the temple's lawyers. All 3 said the same thing. An alternative form could be proposed by the heir and approved by the Council of 9. Approved by the council. Not by the temple. Not by the empress. By the council. That changed everything. Hongrion was on her way through the temple to schedule the ritual, but only the Council of 9 matriarchs could cancel or replace the ritual. And the council consisted of 9 women, each with her own interests and her own duties. The 16th document was the oldest. It was 190 years old. A note from an anonymous scribe at the court of Empress Soral Hajin. The note contained a single sentence. If an alternative form brings the crown a benefit exceeding the value of a duel, then the council is obligated to consider it. Obligated. Cannot refuse. Obligated. One word. The difference between a request and a right. Hajin reread that sentence 7 times. Then he leaned back against the pillows and laughed for the first time in 5 months. Bora looked at him with concern. He explained. He needs to prove that his management index brings the crown more benefit than his hypothetical death in the arena. To do this, The index must be so high that no matriarch can dismiss the figure. How high? He did the math. The average annual income of the great clan in Valmon, about 2,000 ingots. Converted to the management index, that's roughly 1,200 units. If his personal index exceeds the clan's average, he's legally more valuable alive than dead. The goal: 1,200 by the 7th month. Currently 600. Double that in 2 months. He began to calculate. The road to the paper workshop, plus 140. Bridge repairs, plus 20. The caravanserai, plus 95 monthly. Not enough. He needed a breakthrough, and the breakthrough had been right in front of him all along. The school. Han Do-yeon knew it. Education is the fastest multiplier for the index. One literate scribe increases tax collection efficiency by 8%. 10 scribes is a plus of 80. 100 scribes meant a whole new tax system. He dictated the plan to Bora. The School of Accounts. That was its official name. For the daughters of minor clans. Girls aged 12 to 16. Without the seal or with the bronze edge. Those whom no one teaches because there's no one to teach them, and no reason to. Curriculum. Arithmetic. Double-entry bookkeeping. Basics of cartography. Reading and writing in the formal language of the court. Duration of study. 6 months. Cost. Free. For the students. For the Haji. Very expensive. He did the math. Premises. An empty warehouse in the commercial district. Rent. 5 ingots per month. Teacher. Bora. Free. She's already on the payroll. Materials. Paper, quills, abacus, chalkboards. 12 ingots, paid in a lump sum. Food for the students. Rice porridge twice a day. 3 ingots a month for 20 students. Total, 20 ingots a month. He had 34. Almost all of it. He invested everything. Bora objected. She said that without a reserve, a single unexpected event would bankrupt them. Hajin replied that there was already an unexpected event, the trial of blood, and the only way to survive it was to invest everything now so that in 2 months the number on paper would be large enough to save his life. Bora fell silent. The school opened 2 weeks later, quietly, without any announcements. Bora went around to the families of minor officials and merchants in the capital. 23 girls showed up on the first day, 31 a week later. 44 a month later. Bora taught them to count for real, not on their fingers, but on an abacus. With double-entry bookkeeping. Debit, credit, balance. Words that didn't exist in Valmon. Bora made up names for them. Income, expenses, total. The girls learned quickly, faster than Hajin had expected. Minds that don't know that counting is difficult find it easy. After 6 weeks, the first 10 graduates were able to compile a 1-page report on the village's income. Hajin assigned them to various posts. 4 to the capital district's administrative office, 3 to the caravanserai office at the Salt Lake, 3 to the Gyeongsu construction department, 10 literate scribes. For the first time, the index rose from 600 to 900 in 6 weeks, a gain of 300. Literacy. Record keeping. Document processing speed. Each variable pushed the number upward. Minhua recorded a new index, 900. The number wasn't announced publicly, not yet, but it was recorded. And a recorded number in Hwalyong is a fact. Facts don't burn. At the same time, Hajin was building the postal service. The first route, the capital, Salt Lake, and the village of Chongmok. 3 points. 2 couriers, 1 man on a mule, and 1 woman riding with the 1 seal on horseback. Schedule. Departures every 3 days. Delivery in 2 days one way. Gyeongsuan built 3 relay stations, a shelter, a well, and a lantern. Cost of each, 2 ingots. The postal service began operating. First month, 13 deliveries. The time it took for a letter to travel from the capital to the lake was reduced from 7 days to 2. The administration index took the speed of courier service into account. Plus 150. Total, 1,050 by the end of the 5th month. 150 remained until the goal, and 1.5 months. Hajin felt no relief. Han Do-yeon would not allow it. Relief is a luxury. Luxury is a mistake. At night, he lay awake, constructing a tree of decisions in his mind. Hongryong. Branch 1. The blood trial through the temple. Response. Legal precedent plus an index above the clan average. Branch 2. Poison via Soo-hyun. Status. Under control. Soo-hyun is under surveillance. The disinformation channel is operational. Branch 3. Unknown. Hongryong always has a third move. He hadn't seen it. It bothered him. He turned toward the wall. In the darkness of the servants' quarters, where 4 months ago he hadn't been able to lift a hand, he raised his right palm. He looked at his fingers. They were moving. Slowly. Painfully. But they were moving. The tendons were healing. 21st century orthopedics in the mind of a medieval cripple. He clenched his fist, unclenched it, clenched it again. 1,050 index units. 5 people on the team. 44 students at the school. 2 couriers on the route. 20 workers on the roads. Against a woman with the 6th seal who, in 6 months, would send him into the arena to face a warrior capable of cleaving a horse in 2 with a single blow. He clenched his fist once more. He recalled the taste of honey. He recalled Sori's face over a bowl of porridge. He recalled Hongryong's voice saying that this was mercy. Then he closed his eyes. Interest. 3% a year, 1,080 ingots. He'll pay it back. Everything. With interest. Itemized in the budget. The 6th month. The Temple of Pure Fire sent a scroll. An official one, with a gold seal. Priestess Kwon Do-hee, on behalf of the temple, scheduled the trial of blood for Prince Soral Hajin. Date, the 1st day of the 11th month. Opponent, the 5th seal chosen by the temple. Refusal is tantamount to renouncing the line of succession and transferring rights to the regent. The scroll was read aloud in the small hall before 20 witnesses. Hajin sat on a stretcher. He listened. His face was impassive. His eyes were counting. 5 months. He had 5 months. Now it was 4.5. But he didn't need 5. He needed 2. Empress Yeon-hee stood by the throne. Her 7th seal blazed so brightly that the air around her collarbone trembled. She looked at her sister. Hongryong sat to her right, her face full of sympathy. She said she understood a mother's pain. That the law was the law. That the temple had decided, and the court was obliged to obey. Yeon-hee turned to her son. There was a question in her eyes. Hajin nodded almost imperceptibly. No, not now, mother. Not now. Yeon-hee gripped the hilt of the sword at her belt. Her fingers turned white. Then she let go. She was the empress, the 7th seal. She could have split this hall in 2. But she could not cut through the law. Because the law is not stone. The law is paper, and paper isn't cut with a sword. Hajin returned to the room and began working. His speed doubled. His sleep was cut down to 3 hours. He dictated to Bora for 16 hours a day. Gyeonsu received an order. The 2nd route. Not south, as he had said under Soo-hyun. East, to Han Province. Small, poor, without the great clan. 3,000 households. Annual income of 200 ingots. Han Province paid tribute to the John clan and the Mo clan at the same time. A double tax. It was illegal under the code, but no one checked because Han Province wasn't worth checking. Hajin checked. Through Bora and 2 graduates of the School of Accounts, he obtained Han Province's tax records for 10 years. The figures were catastrophic. The double tax ate up 70% of the income. Peasants were fleeing. The population had halved in 10 years. The roads had rotted away. The bridges had collapsed. There were no doctors. There were no schools. It was no longer a province. It was a corpse. Hajin wrote a petition addressed to the empress. Prince Soral Hajin requests that the province of Han be placed under the direct administration of the crown, with the prince appointed as temporary governor. Rationale: double taxation in violation of Article 217 of the Code. The inability of the current suzerains to ensure the minimum governance index. Yeon-hee signed it within an hour. She didn't understand why her son wanted a dead province, but she understood that her son's every move angered Hong-ryeon. And anything that angered Hong-ryeon pleased Yeon-hee. A mother's logic. Simple. Effective. The Jong clan and the Mo clan received notification. Han province was being removed from their jurisdiction. The Jong clan remained silent. Han province brought them 30 ingots a year. It wasn't worth a quarrel with the crown. The Mo clan objected. Hong-ryeon lodged a protest.
Han province brought the Mo clan 70 ingots annually.
A trifle for a clan with an income of 3,000. But it's not about the money. It's a matter of principle. Every province taken away from the Mo clan is a blow to Hong-ryeon's authority. The protest was considered for a week. Hajin did not intervene. Instead, the number intervened on his behalf. Bora provided the council with a full report on the double taxation of Han province, with names and dates. With amounts. The report was compiled according to double-entry bookkeeping standards, which did not exist in Hwalyong until the School of Accounting. 3 of the 9 matriarchs read the report. The other 6 did not. But 3 were enough. Choi Nam-hee, 5th seal, the one who had laughed at him during the hearing by the lake. She was no longer laughing. She voted in favor of the transfer. Baek Sol-ran, 7th seal, abstained. Neither for nor against. The hawk waited. Ma Tae-ho, head of the Ma clan, 5th seal, mother of Princess Ma Song-yeon, voted in favor. 3 in favor, 1 against. 5 abstained. Han province came under the crown. Under Hajin. Gyeongsu left that same day. With him were 10 workers and 3 graduates of the School of Calculation. The task? A census, roads, wells, a medical station, basic infrastructure to be completed in 2 months. The budget? 40 ingots, all they had, plus a 20-ingot loan from the caravanserai on the lake. The registry's first loan. Secured against future tax revenues from Han province. Hajin was building with money that didn't yet exist. Han Do-yeon called it deficit financing. There wasn't even a word for it here. Meanwhile, Princess Ma Song-yeon, 19 years old, 4th seal, heiress of the Ma clan. She made contact. Not directly. Through intermediaries. The note came via Hyun's maid, who passed it to the cook, who passed it to Bora. 4 links. Professional caution. The note contained 3 lines. Princess Ma Seon-yeon wishes to discuss with the prince matters of tax reform in the Ma province. Hajin read it. He opened the file in the registry. The Ma clan, 8th of the 9 great clans, the poorest, the most corrupt. Seon-yeon's mother, Ma Tae, had plundered the clan's treasury to the last penny. Seon-yeon knew this, and she hated it. Not her mother. The system that allowed her mother to steal. The meeting took place at night, in an empty warehouse where the School of Arithmetic operated during the day. Bora stood by the door. Sori kept watch on the street from outside. Seon-yeon came alone, unarmed, in plain clothes. She looked at Hajin in his sedan chair, at his hands, at the cane leaning against the wall. She showed no pity. Fine. He didn't need pity. He needed a voice. The conversation lasted 2 hours. Hajin spoke little. He listened a lot. Seon-yeon spoke about the Ma clan, about the mother who sells government posts, about the treasurer who keeps 3 sets of books, about the peasants fleeing to neighboring provinces, about the 4th seal on her collarbone, which grants her the right to kill 10 people with her bare hands, but does not grant her the right to sign a tax decree. She spoke calmly, without malice, as if reading a report. Hajin recognized that tone. That's how people speak when they've already made up their minds and are looking not for advice, but for a tool. He asked what she wanted. Seon-yeon answered directly. She wanted to become the head of the Ma clan while her mother was still alive. To do that, she needed the council. To get the council's support, She needed evidence of embezzlement. She had her suspicions. She didn't have an accountant who could turn those suspicions into numbers. Hajin nodded. He said he'd give her an accountant. Two, in fact, the top graduates of the School of Accounting. They would conduct an audit of the Ma clan, quietly, over 3 months. In exchange, the Ma clan's vote in the Council of Nine, when the time comes. Regarding the blood trial, Sun Young looked at him for 4 seconds. Then she said she agreed. They didn't shake hands. He couldn't raise his right hand high enough. She didn't bend down. Instead, Bora wrote down the terms on 2 sheets of paper. Both signed. Hajin with his left hand, crooked, but legible. His first ally on the council, 1 of 9. He needed 5 for a majority. The index was growing. The postal route had expanded. The capital, the lake, Chungmuk, Han Province. 4 points, 3 couriers. Gyeongsuan built 2 more relay stations. The school graduated its 2nd class, 32 girls, a total of 76 literate scribes from 2 classes. Hajin distributed them like seeds, to every office, to every village, to every registration point.
Every girl with an abacus is an addition to the index. Every road is speed. Every bridge is a connection. By the end of the 6th month, Hajin's Soral Administration Index, 1,200. Exactly. The goal was achieved. 1,200. The average for the Great Clan. A 14-year-old crippled boy, without a seal, without an army, without land, had scored as much as a clan with 300 years of history and hundreds of female warriors. Minhua recorded it. The number was entered into the court's registry. Fact. Hajin did not celebrate. He looked at the map of Han Province that Gyeongsu had sent by courier. Pencil lines marking future roads. X's marking the sites of future wells. Circles marking the sites of future schools. This was the beginning. The first province he ruled not through law, nor through force, but through calculation. At night, he lay awake thinking about Hong Ryeon. She knew about the trial. She knew about Han Province. She knew about the school. Through Soo Hyun, she even knew about the southern road that didn't exist. But she didn't know the most important thing. She didn't know that he had already found a way to avoid entering the arena, and that this way depended not on her, but on the 9 women in the hall, each of whom loved her clan more than she hated the cripple. The 7th month. Han Province came to life. Gyeongsu worked like a man possessed. 3 roads, 5 bridges, 8 wells. A medical clinic with 2 herbalists whom he'd hired from a neighboring province for 1.5 ingots a month each. The peasants who had fled began to return. 20 families in the first month. Hajin counted every family. Each family meant households. Households meant a tax base. A tax base meant the index. The index meant life. His life, literally. Bora sent a report from Khan Province. The first month under the crown. Tax revenue, 17 ingots. Under the old regime, the province turned in 8. The difference? 9 ingots. Where did they come from? Not from a tax rate increase, from an expansion of the tax base. 20 new families, the elimination of double taxation. Records that hadn't been kept before. 3 scribes from the School of Accounting found 40 households that hadn't paid at all because they weren't on any lists. Invisible people. Now visible. Now paying. But paying half as much as the visible ones used to pay. A paradox that Han Doyeon knew by heart. Lower the rate, broaden the tax base, collect more. The Laffer curve. Here it had no name. Here it was called a miracle. The index, 1,400, plus 200 per month. Growth was accelerating. Every new piece of infrastructure pulled 3 others in its wake. Roads sped up the mail. The mail sped up trade. Trade increased taxes. Taxes financed new roads. A spiral. Han Do-yeon called it positive feedback. Here, too, it was called a miracle. People didn't understand the mechanism. They saw the result. And the result frightened them. Empress Yeon-hee found out in her 7th month. Not from her son. From her own guard. The commander of Yeon-hee's personal guard. Cho Yuna, a warrior of the 5th seal. She came to the Empress with a report.
The guard's pay for the past 2 months had been delayed from the court treasury, but it had arrived without delay from another source. The source was unknown. Cho Yuna conducted an investigation. The source turned out to be the Han Province Reconstruction Fund. The decree was signed by the acting governor, Prince Hajin. A supplement to their pay. 10%. A trifle. But regular and unsolicited. Yeonhee reread the report. Then she stood up. She took her sword. She went to her son. Hajin was sitting in his room. Bora was with him. Sori stood by the door. The door swung open. The Empress. The seventh seal. A drawn blade. The golden glow on her collarbone was so bright that Bora squinted. Sori took 3 steps back. Instinct. Even the third seal could feel the pressure of the seventh. Yeonhee approached her son. The sword hung in her lowered hand. The tip scraped the floor. She looked down at him. He was sitting on cushions looking up at her. Mother and son. The seventh seal and 0. She asked what he was doing. He replied that he was in charge. She asked of what. He said everything he could reach. She asked why her guard was receiving money from a crippled prince. He replied that the Empress's guard must be loyal to the Empress. Loyalty is bought not by force, but by pay. The court treasury is delaying payments because the Mo clan controls the treasury. He cleared up the delay. Through his foundation. This isn't a bribe. It's logistics. Yeonhee remained silent. She looked at his hands, at the fingers holding the quill. 4 months ago, he couldn't even lift a spoon. Now he was writing. She looked at the table, at the stacks of papers, at the maps, at the reports, at the lists of names, at the numbers. Numbers everywhere, on every sheet, in every column. Numbers she didn't understand. She turned to Bora. She asked who this girl was. Bora straightened up. First seal, the bronze edge. She said she was the treasurer of Prince Hajin's reform. Yeonhee repeated the word. Treasurer. Then she looked at her son, for a long time. The blade stopped scraping the floor. She picked up the sword. She sheathed it. Her eyes glistened. She spoke softly, so quietly that only he and Bora could hear her. She said she had carried him for 9 months without knowing she had given birth to a nation. Then she turned and left. Sori later reported that the Empress had returned to her chambers and did not come out until morning. The guards heard weeping. The seventh seal was weeping. Hajin allowed himself nothing. No joy, no relief, no pity. He turned to Bora and said they needed to open a second school of calculation in Han Province. 30 female students to be recruited. Bora nodded.
Outside the door, Yeonhee's footsteps faded down the hallway. Her mother was leaving. But before she left, she did something. Cho Yuna, commander of the guard, 5th seal. She remained standing by the door to Hajin's room. She did not leave with the Empress. She stayed. Hajin looked at her. She said that the Empress had ordered her to guard the prince, starting today, indefinitely. For the first time in Hajin's life, standing between him and Honryong's knife was not a piece of paper, but a living woman bearing the 5th seal and a drawn sword. It happened. It was good. The 8th month, index, 1,800. Growing by 400 a month. 2 schools, 110 female students, 47 graduates, 3 postal routes, 2 provinces under administration, the capital and Han. 21 ri of roads built, 14 bridges repaired and built. Team Hyuna, Bora, Kyung-soo, Sori, and Cho Yuna, plus Song Young through intermediaries, plus Soo-yeon, who worked for him without knowing it. Hongrion struck back, not through the law, not through poison, through money. She bought up the debts of 3 gravel suppliers who worked with Kyung-soo. She quadrupled the prices.
Road construction in Han Province came to a halt. Gyeongsu sent a courier, an urgent one. They ran out of stone. There's no money to pay the new prices. Construction has stalled. Every day of downtime is a loss for the index. Hajin received the message in the morning. By noon, he had made a decision. He didn't haggle with the suppliers. He didn't look for new ones. He remembered that there was an abandoned quarry on the northern hill in Han Province. It had been closed 30 years ago because the Mo clan had taken over the mining license. But Han Province is now under the crown. The Mo clan's license has been revoked along with their jurisdiction. He sent Gyeongsu a one-word order: quarry. Gyeongsu understood. A week later, the quarry was up and running, their own stone, free of charge. Hongryon's suppliers were left with 4 times the price and 0 buyers. Hongrion lost money. Not much, but they lost it. And losses count. In the registry, always. End of the 8th month. Index, 2,400. Mobility, 45%. Left arm fully functional. Right arm at 60%. Legs. Left leg at 20%. Right leg at 15%. He could stand. For 3 seconds. Holding onto the wall. 3 seconds. He stood at night when no one was watching. 3 seconds. Then he sat back down. 4 seconds after a week. 5 seconds after 2 weeks. 10 seconds after a month. 10 seconds standing. Every night. In the dark. Alone. A cripple learning to stand. A prince learning to be a ruler. The 9th month. Baek Soo-hyun poisoned the tea. Not Hajina. Bora. The tea sat on the table at the School of Arithmetic. Ordinary barley tea in a clay cup. Bora drank it every day after her afternoon class. Soo-hyun volunteered to clean the classroom after school. She'd been doing it for 3 weeks already. Quietly. Carefully. No one was watching her at school because Hyun was watching her at the palace. A mistake. Hajin admitted it later. He controlled the disinformation channel and forgot that the poisoner wasn't just the channel. She was also the poisoner. Bora picked up the cup, brought it to her lips, stopped. The smell. Barley tea smells like barley. This one smells like barley and something else. Bitter. Barely perceptible. Bora was the daughter of a salt merchant. Salt merchants know how to distinguish impurities. Salt mixed with chalk. Salt mixed with sand. Salt mixed with copper sulfate. A nose that can distinguish 3 types of impurities in salt will also detect a 4th type of impurity in tea. She set the cup down. She didn't drink it. She brought it to Hajin Nu. He sniffed it. His sense of smell kicked in. Han Do-yeon had once written a report on biological weapons in the Balkans. The appendix included a list of plant-based poisons used in Asian conflicts. A bitter smell when heated. An oily residue on the sides of the cup. Probably aconite. Aconite again. The family favored by Hwalmyeon's poisoners. The porridge at birth contained sonyeon root, a neuromuscular blocker. The tea contained a different substance. Judging by the smell, clobustine, a cardiotoxin. Death from cardiac arrest within 3 hours. It looks like a natural death from a weak heart. Perfect for a 16-year-old girl with calluses on her hands, a case no one will investigate. Hajin sat there holding the cup. His hands didn't tremble. Ri-jung weighed her options. Option 1. Tell Soo-hyun that poison has been detected. Result? She runs away. No evidence. Option 2. Do nothing. Result? Soo-hyun will try again. Sooner or later, she'll get caught. Option 3. Use it. He chose the 3rd option. Through Hyun, he passed the cup to a herbalist in Han Province. She identified the substance, caper root. 3 drops of the infusion per cup. A lethal dose. Hajin asked the herbalist to draw up a written report, with a seal, including a description of the identification method, a document. Then he asked Bora to trace where Soo-hyun was getting her raw materials. Bora worked for 2 weeks. The chain. Soo-hyun bought dried borettes from an apothecary in the southern district. The apothecary obtained it from a herbalist in the foothills. The herbalist had received the order through a middleman 3 months ago. The middleman worked for the Baek family's trading house in the capital. The Baek family's trading house. Baek Solrun. The 7th seal. Soo-hyun's grandmother. The chain was complete. 5 links. Each one documented. Signatures. Dates. Amounts. Bora had learned from Hajin. Every number on that paper was a nail in someone's coffin. Now Hajin had a choice. Destroy Soo-hyun, or destroy Solren, or neither. He chose the fourth option, which wasn't on the list. He invited Soo-hyun for a talk in the evening, in his room. Cho Yuna stood behind the door, the fifth seal. If Soo-hyun tried anything, Yuna would cut her in half faster than she could draw a knife. Soo-hyun entered. She was smiling. A soft voice, a beautiful face. The fourth seal. Hajin showed her a cup. That very one. He asked if she knew what it was. Soo-hyun turned pale. Not much. Self-control. She had been trained. She said it was a cup of tea. Hajin showed her the herbalist's report. Then the pharmacist's receipt. Then the middleman's name. Then the name of the trading house. Beck. Soo-hyun stopped smiling. White. Stony. The fourth seal on her collarbone burned, but her hands remained motionless. She understood. If these documents fell into the hands of the Council of Nine, the Beck clan would be accused of attempting to take the life of the prince's servant. A servant is not a warrior. An attempt on the life of an unarmed person is a disgraceful execution for Soo-hyun, and an investigation for the entire Beck clan, for grandmother Solran. Hajin said she had two paths. The first, he hands the documents to the herald. Minhua registers them. The trial, the court, the execution. Disgrace for the clan. Second, she goes to the Great Hall tomorrow morning, and in front of witnesses, admits that she acted on grandmother's orders. A public confession. The Peck clan takes a blow, but not a fatal one. Soo-hyun's life is spared. Solran loses face. Hajin gains leverage over the second most powerful clan in Hwalyong. Soo-hyun remained silent. Then she asked if there was a third option. Hajin replied that there was. She would stay with him. The documents would be filed with the registry. Not with the court, with the registry. They would lie there like a knife under a pillow. So-hyun would continue to work, but not for Solran, for him. And every morning she would wake up knowing that a single word from Hajin would have her executed. This isn't slavery, it's a contract, like with Sori, like with everyone else. So-hyun looked at him, at the boy on the pillows, at the cripple, at the 14-year-old prince who had just laid out her life before her like a two-column ledger. Debit, credit. She chose the third path. Of course, Hajin knew what she would choose, because the third path was the only one that left her a chance to betray him later. And people always need a chance to betray later. That makes them manageable for now. That morning, he sent Solran a gift, a box. Inside the box lay a copy of the healer's report and a note, a single sentence. Your granddaughter is healthy and doing well in school. Sori reported that Solran's messenger had rushed to the capital 4 days later. Solran sent a reply, not a note, a gift. 200 silver ingots. No explanation. 200 ingots, a price for silence, or the start of negotiations. Hajin accepted the silver and invested it in the construction of the third road. The Peck clan's money was building Prince Soral's infrastructure. The registrar recorded it. In the 10th month, Peck Solran received a second gift, not from Hajin, from her chief spy in the capital. The bundle contained Solran's correspondence from the past 2 years, neatly bound, with notes in the margins, in small, even handwriting written with her left hand. These were not copies. These were the originals. Hajin had been intercepting her mail for 4 months, through the postal stations he himself had built, through couriers he paid, through graduates of the School of Arithmetic who worked at key stations and copied every letter passing through the system. Solran burned the bundle. 2 days later, for the first time in her life, she requested an audience with the boy. The meeting took place at the School of Calculation, at night. Solran came alone. The seventh seal, hawk-like eyes. She was 56 years old. She had killed more people than Hajin had read books in his past life. She sat down across from him. She looked at his hands, at the quill he was holding, at the stack of papers, at the numbers. She said that all her life she had considered men to be furniture, that he was the first piece of furniture that had made her ask for a meeting. Hajin replied that he doesn't ask for audiences, furniture counts, and that by this point he had counted everything Solran possessed, every ingot, every field, every caravan, every receipt, and every secret. Solran was silent for a long time. Then she asked what he wanted. He replied, "A voice for the Peck clan in the Council of Nine, when the question of the blood trial comes up." Solran said that was a high price to pay. He said the price had already been paid. Her correspondence was in his register. Her granddaughter was on his team. Her money was in his roads. If she voted for him, the register would remain silent. If she votes against him, the register speaks, loudly, in front of all nine. Solran stood up. She bowed, deeply. For the first time in her life, the seventh seal bowed to a man, not out of respect, out of calculation. But a bow is a bow, and the witnesses saw it. Bora, Sori, Cho Yuna. 3 pairs of eyes. 3 witnesses to how the world of Hwalmyeon cracked at the seams. The 10th month. 1 month remained until the trial of blood. Hajin hadn't slept for 2 days. Not out of fear, out of arithmetic. He needed 5 votes in the Council of 9. He had 2. Ma Song-yeon, Baek Solran. He needed 3 more, the 9 great clans. Soral wouldn't vote. This was about Soral. Mo would vote against him, the Hongrion clan. That left Che, Baek, Ma, Jong, Ryu, Kwon, Han, and Nam. Baek was on his side. Ma is in favor. The remaining 7. We need 3 out of 7. The registrar has laid out 7 files. The Che clan, head Che Nam-hee, 5th seal. She remembers the Salt Lake. She voted to transfer Han province. She's not an ally, but she's a pragmatist. If Hajin is useful to her, she'll vote in favor. If not, then not. We need to demonstrate our usefulness. The Jong clan, neutral. Lost Han province without a fight. Head, John Min-soo, 4th seal. The weakest of the matriarchs, votes with the majority, a weather vane. The Ryu and Kwon clans, Mo's allies. Hongrion feeds them. Ryu receives grain from Mo's warehouses. Kwon gains access to the mines Mo. Without Hongrion, they'd starve. They will vote against it. The Han clan no longer holds Han province. Leader, Han Sua, 3rd seal. The weakest of the leaders, embittered by the loss of the province. May vote against it out of revenge. May vote for it if offered compensation. The Nam clan, distant, southern, merchant. Head, Nam Yeonji, 5th seal. She doesn't care who sits on the throne. What matters to her is who controls the trade routes. Total, 2 votes secured. Ryu and Kwon are against. 4 remaining. Cho, John, Han, Nam. 3 out of 4. Hajin started with Nam Yeonji. Trade. His trump card. Postal routes already covered 4 provinces. Trade caravans began using his roads because they were better, faster, safer. Gyeongsang's stone bridges could withstand heavily laden carts. Drainage ditches kept the roads from turning to mud in the rain. Merchants were counting their money. Hajin's roads saved them 2 days' travel on every route. 2 days' worth of feed for the mules. Security, wheel wear, damage to goods. A 20% savings on transportation costs. The Nam clan's trading house controlled the Southern Silk Road, the most profitable route on the continent. The route passed through the provinces of Gwon, Mo, and Soral. The section through Soral was the worst. Mud, potholes. 2 bridges, one of which collapsed last summer. Caravans took a detour through Mo province, adding 4 extra days to the journey. Hajin sent Nam Yeonji a proposal. Not a note. A full-fledged proposal. 12 pages. It took 3 days to draft. Reconstruction of the section of the Silk Road through Soral province. 14 ri of new road. 3 stone bridges. 5 guarded stations. Deadline, 4 months. Cost, 300 ingots. Source of funding, a joint fund. The Nam clan is contributing 200 ingots. The crown is contributing 100 from future tolls. Revenue. A toll from each caravan. 60% to the Nam clan, 40% to the crown. Payback period, 8 months. Nam Yonji read the proposal.
She sent a reply the next day. One word. How much? Not from order. A question. Merchants don't refuse. Merchants bargain. Hajin bargained for 2 weeks via couriers. 70% to Nam, 30% to the crown. Payback period? 6 months. Nam Yonji signed it. The registry's first commercial contract. 200 investment ingots from the great clan into the prince's infrastructure. The index jumped. A new road, new bridges, a new station. Plus 400 a month just from the project with Nam. 3,200. Che Nam Hee. Hajin didn't offer her a contract. She's not a merchant. She's a warrior. He offered her something else. Information. Through Bora, he compiled a report on the Che clan's military expenditures over the past 5 years, an audit that no one had ever conducted because military spending in Hualiang is taboo. Female warriors do not account for what is spent on war. But Hajin did not consider it spent. He considered it lost. Over 5 years, the Che clan lost more in border skirmishes with the Ryu clan than it had earned from the Salt Lake over 10 years. The war cost the Che clan 6,000 ingots.
A peace agreement regarding the lake would have yielded 4,000 in net profit over the same period. The difference? 10,000 ingots. The price of pride. Hajin sent the report to Cho Nam Hee. No comments, no suggestions, just numbers. Let her do the math herself. Cho Nam Hee spent a week crunching the numbers. Then she sent a note, a short one. She asked how much a peaceful settlement with the Ryu clan through the prince's mediation would cost. Hajin replied, 0. Mediation is free if the Cho clan votes for an alternative form of the blood trial. Nam Hee was silent for 3 days. Then she sent the second word in their entire correspondence. The first was at the hearing on the lake when she said, acceptable. The second was now. It's a deal. 3 votes. Ma, Beck, and Cho. 2 more are needed. Jung Minsu, a weather vane. He votes with the majority. If Hajin secures 3 out of 8 votes plus his own influence, Minsu will swing his way. The 4th vote. Han Su-ah. Bitter over the loss of the province. Hajin sent her an invitation to visit Han province, in person, to see what has become of the land she lost. Sua arrived, with guards, with distrust, ready to witness the ruin and gloat. Kyung-soo met her at the provincial border. He drove her along the new roads, past working wells, past a medical clinic, past a school where 30 girls were practicing counting on abacuses, past fields where, for the first time in 10 years, peasants were plowing without having to pay a double tax. Sua remained silent the entire way. Then she stopped in a village where an old woman was selling turnips at the market. Sua asked the old woman how things were going. The old woman said that under the new governor, the tax had been cut in half, that her granddaughter was attending school, that the journey to the capital now took 2 days instead of 7, that for the first time in 20 years, she was able to save money. Sua returned to the capital and didn't send a reply for a week. Hajin waited. On the 8th day, a note arrived. Khan Sua asked that the Khan clan be granted back the right to collect the local market tax in Khan province. A trifle, 20 ingots a year, a symbol, not money, a presence. The Han clan's name in Han province, pride. Hajin agreed instantly. 20 ingots for a vote on the council. You can't get a better deal than that. 4 votes. Plus Jung, who'll go with the majority, 5. 5 out of 8, a majority. The index, 3,600. Hajin sat in his room at night staring at the map. 5 provinces were marked with his notes. 4 postal routes, 2 schools, 110 female students, 47 graduates, 21 ari of road, 14 bridges, 1 quarry, 1 caravanserai, 1 trade contract, 5 votes. 5 votes that, in a month's time, would declare that the crippled prince was more valuable alive than dead. He stood up. He stood up. Without a wall, without a cane. 12 seconds. His legs were shaking, pain in his ankles. His tendons were tight. But he stood. 12 seconds. Then he sat down. 50% mobility. He looked at his reflection in a copper basin of water. A gaunt face. Dark circles. 14 years old. In a month, he'll turn 15. On his last birthday, they served him porridge with honey and severed his tendons. On this one, he intends to rewrite the 1,000-year-old law. He lay down. He closed his eyes. The registry was working, even in his sleep. Columns, rows, names, numbers. The price of every act of submission and every act of betrayal. Recorded, filed, ready for presentation. The 11th month, the first day, the great hall of the Council of the 9 Matriarchs. Hajina was carried in on a stretcher. He could walk. 15 seconds standing. 30 steps with a cane. But no one was supposed to see that. Not yet. The hall was full. All 9 clan leaders, their entourages, the female guards, the scribes, the heralds. Minhwa stood at the protocol table with a quill at the ready. On the dais, the Empress's throne. Yeonhee sat with her back straight. The 7th seal burned steadily. A drawn sword stood nearby. Not in its sheath but resting on the armrest, a message without words. To the right of the throne sat Mo Hong-ryeon, dressed in black silk, the 6th seal. Her face was calm. She had been waiting for this day for half a year. To the left stood the priestess Kwon Do-hee, the 5th seal, in the ritual robes of the Temple of Pure Fire. In her hands, a scroll bearing the formula for the trial. Behind her, a warrior, a young one, 22 years old, broad shoulders, a 2-handed axe on her back. The 5th seal on her collarbone shone with a steady golden light. The one who was supposed to kill Hajin in the arena. He looked at her. She looked at him. No malice, no interest, just business. He is a cripple. She is an executioner. It's that simple. Kwon Do-hee unrolled the scroll. Her voice was deep and resonant, ritualistic. She announced that the Temple of Pure Fire had decreed a trial of blood for Soral Hajin, the sole male heir of the Soral dynasty. According to ancient law, the heir must prove his right to the line in a duel with a warrior of the 5th seal. Refusal is tantamount to abdication. The hall was silent. Hong-ryeon allowed herself a hint of a smile, subtle, like a crack in porcelain. Hajin raised his left hand, a gesture requesting the floor. Do-hee fell silent. She looked at the Empress. Yeonhee nodded. Hajin spoke, quietly, steadily, monotonously, as always. He said that he accepted the temple's right to prescribe the trial, that he did not contest the law, that he honored tradition. Hong-ryeon stopped smiling. She heard in his voice what experienced predators hear, the calmness of a victim who has no intention of fleeing. Hajin continued. He said that, in accordance with a precedent set 190 years ago, recorded on page 314 of the Code of the Court, an heir maimed through the fault of a member of the ruling family has the right to replace the trial with an alternative form of proof of competence. Do-hee opened her mouth. She closed it. She looked at Hong-ryeon. Hong-ryeon didn't move, but her fingers on the armrest had turned white. Hajin continued. He said that the alternative form was approved not by the temple, but by the Council of the 9 Matriarchs. According to the interpretation of 3 temple lawyers and a note from an anonymous scribe at the court of Empress Soral Yeonbin, all documents are attached. Minhwa. Minhwa stood up. She unfolded the stack of documents. 16 sheets, a precedent, interpretations, the scribe's note, the key word, obligated. The council is obligated to consider the alternative form if it brings the crown a benefit exceeding the value of the duel. The hall grew noisy. Not loudly. The Hwalmyong matriarchs do not make a commotion. They rustle. With silk. With fans. With whispers. Hong-ryeon stood up. She said it was absurd. That a crippled boy could not rewrite a 1,000-year-old tradition by citing a note from an anonymous scribe. That the temple stood above the court's precedents. Hajin replied that the temple stood above the court in matters of the seal. But an alternative form was a matter for the council, and the council was obligated to consider it. Not merely able, obligated. He looked at Choi Nam-hee. Nam-hee stood up. The fifth seal. She said she demanded a vote, according to procedure. Baek Sol-ran stood up. The seventh seal. She seconded the motion. Ma Seong-yeon stood up in place of her mother, who had ceded her voting rights to her a week ago following the audit results. Fourth seal. She seconded the motion. Nam Yeon-ji. Fifth seal. She seconded the motion. Han Soo-ah. Third seal. She seconded the motion. Jung Min-so looked to the left, to the right. 5 in favor of the motion. She is the sixth. She voted in favor. The Ryu and Kwon clans exchanged glances. 6 out of 8 voted in favor of the motion. They remained silent. It didn't matter. There was a majority. Minhwa recorded the vote. The council was considering an alternative form. Now Hajin had to present it. He nodded to Bora. She stood up. First seal. The Bronze Edge. Before a hall full of warrior women whose combined weight of seals could crush an army, her hands did not tremble. She unrolled the scroll. It was long, 3 meters. On it was a table. Hajin's Soral Management Index. Monthly breakdown. Month 0. 0. Month 3. 440. Month 5. 1,200. Month 7. 2,800. Month 9. 3,600. Month 10. 4,200. Bora read the numbers aloud. Every line, every category. Roads, bridges, schools, post office, taxes, population, literacy. Every number was backed by a document. Every document was signed by witnesses. The hall listened. Not everyone understood. Most did not understand. They knew the weight of the seals. They did not know what the governance index was. But they heard the numbers. And the numbers grew, month after month, line after line, like an army marching across the paper. Hajin spoke again. He said that his governance index exceeded the average of 4 out of the 9 great clans. That in 10 months, he had increased the crown's tax revenue by 700%. That his postal network had reduced the delivery time for orders in 4 provinces from 7 days to 2. That his roads were used by the trade caravans of 3 clans. That his schools had graduated 76 literate scribes, more than all of Hwalyum's temple schools combined over the past year. He said that his death in the arena would undo all of this. That the network would collapse. The roads would rot. The schools would close. The mail would stop. And the council would lose in a single day more than the pride of a 1,000-year-old tradition was worth. Silence. Honryeon stood pale. She turned to the warrior with the axe. The woman stood motionless. A professional, waiting for an order. But the order did not depend on Honryeon. The order depended on the vote. Minhwa asked, who was in favor of adopting an alternative form and replacing the duel with recognition of the administration index as proof of the heir's competence? 5 hands went up. Ma, Baek, Choi, Nam, Han. Jong raised her hand 3 seconds later. The 6th. Ryu and Kwon did not raise their hands. Mo did not vote. 8 voters. 6 in favor, 2 against. Minhwa recorded the results. Her voice trembled. She knew it. Everyone knew it. For the first time in Hwalyun's history, an heir had passed the trial of blood without taking up a weapon. For the first time, the number on paper had outweighed the axe. The warrior with the axe looked at Hajin. Then she turned and walked out of the hall. Without a word. There would be no assignment. Hongryeon sat motionless. Her back was straight. Her face was stony. The 6th seal burned steadily. She hadn't lost the battle. She had lost to the rule. Hajin lay on a stretcher and looked at her. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He was thinking that Honryeon was already calculating her next move. Because she always calculates her next move. And that this move would be the last for one of them. The 12th month. Hongrion struck that very day. Not through the law, not through the temple, through whispers. She began to say that the boy was possessed by a foreign spirit, that his knowledge was impossible, that no one in Hualyang was capable of knowing what he knew, that it was heresy, that the temple must perform a purification ritual. The whispers spread through the palace, through the capital, through the provinces, quickly, faster than Hajin's couriers. Because rumors don't travel by road, they fly through the air. From ear to ear, from fear to fear. Sori reported in the morning. 3 maids in the palace were discussing how the prince spoke in a foreign language in his sleep. He hadn't spoken, but the rumor was already alive. Hyona reported in the afternoon. A market vendor said the prince had sold his soul to a sea demon in exchange for the ability to count. Bora reported in the evening. 2 students from the School of Arithmetic didn't show up for class. Their parents had taken them away. They were frightened. Hajin listened. The registrar recorded it. 3 vectors of spread: the palace, the market, and the school. Speed of spread: 3 days until the entire capital is affected. 7 days until the provinces. Hongrion knew what she was doing. She had lost in the council chamber, where votes are counted. Now she had moved to the arena where fears are counted. Heresy, the most dangerous accusation in Hualyang. The Temple of Pure Fire had the right to perform a purification. Purification is a public exorcism. 3 days in the temple basement, hunger, thirst, ritual beatings. If the spirit does not leave, the possessed person is burned. The law. Ancient, cruel, but the law. Hajin could not legally fight the rumor. A rumor is not a document. It cannot be refuted with receipts. But Han Do-yeon knew something about rumors that not a single female warrior of Hualyang knew. A rumor is a wave of information. A wave cannot be stopped by a wall, but it can be redirected or drowned out by a second wave. He launched a second wave. Through the School of Arithmetic, through 76 female graduates working in offices throughout the capital and the 4 provinces, through merchants who used his roads, through the peasants of Han Province, for whom he had cut taxes in half. The wave was simple. Not a rebuttal, not a defense. A question. A single question passed from person to person. Who stands to gain if the prince who cut taxes and built roads is declared possessed? Who stands to gain? 3 words, stronger than any refutation. Because a refutation is a defense, but a question is an attack. Everyone who had heard the rumor about the demon had now heard the question as well. And they began to wonder, who stands to gain? Princess Hongrion. Who lost the vote in the council? Who maimed her nephew as an infant? Whom everyone knew about? Everyone. Hajin didn't mention Hongryon's name. There was no need. People filled in the name themselves. That was more effective. People believe more strongly in what they've figured out on their own than in what they've been told. 7 days. The rumor about the demon persisted, but a question lingered alongside it, and the question was louder. 10 days later, Priestess Kwon Do-hee sent a notice to the palace. The temple refuses to initiate the purification procedure without a formal accusation confirmed by 3 matriarchs. 3 matriarchs. Hongrion could have gathered the Ryu clan and the Kwon clan. 2. The third was missing. Baek refused. Cho refused. Ma refused. Nam didn't respond. Han didn't respond. Jung didn't respond. 2 out of 3. Not enough. The whispers of heresy hadn't died down. They had sunk to the bottom, lying in wait. Hajin knew that Hongrion had saved this card for the future, for the second arch, for the moment when his defenses would weaken. But for now, the card hadn't played out. He'd bought himself time. Time he spent on what mattered most. The index. The 12th month. 4,800. 5,000. 5,200. A new figure every week. The second school of arithmetic in Han Province had graduated its first class. 28 students. A total of 104 graduates. An army of scribes. Small, quiet, unarmed. But it did what no army with swords could do. It counted. Every courtyard, every ingot, every bridge, every road, every letter, every day. Gyeonsu completed the section of the Silk Road a month ahead of schedule. 14 ri of road, 3 stone bridges, 5 stations. The Nam clan's first caravan traveled along the new section and saved 4 days. Nam Yeonji sent a second batch of investments, 300 ingots. No haggling. She calculated quickly, faster than most female warriors. Merchants always calculate quickly. Hajin invested everything in expansion, the third school of arithmetic in Choi province, at Namhee's request. It was the first school opened at the request of the great clan. Namhee didn't say why she needed it, but Hajin knew. She had calculated it. 6,000 ingots lost in the war. Scribes who can calculate military expenditures are a weapon against their own generals, who inflate budgets. Namhee used Hajin. He allowed it. Everyone who used him became even more tightly bound to him. At the same time, an audit of the Ma clan. 2 graduates worked on it for 3 months. The result? 4,000 ingots embezzled over 5 years. The head of the Ma clan, Tae-ho, the 5th seal, had been stealing from her own clan's treasury. Systematically. Through sham purchases. Through dead souls on the ledgers. Through overpricing of fodder. A classic. Han Do-yeon had seen this in every corruption case he'd investigated. The schemes are identical, in every world. Princess Ma Seong-yeon received the report. 200 pages. With witness signatures, with cross-references, with the original receipts attached. She read it overnight. In the morning, she entered the Ma clan hall and placed the report on the table in front of her mother. Ma Tae-ho read the first page, the second, the third. She stopped at the 4th. She looked at her daughter. Son-yeon said her mother had 2 choices, a voluntary transfer of power or the Council of 9. Tae-ho chose the first option, quietly, without the hall, without heralds. She signed the transfer of power in her office in the presence of 2 witnesses. Ma Son-yeon became head of the Ma clan at the age of 19. The youngest head in the history of the 9. 4th seal, weak by matriarchal standards. But the registry stood behind her, and everyone knew it. Hajin received the news via courier. He read it. He nodded. Bora asked if he was happy. He replied that happiness was an expense not included in the budget. He was happy when the numbers added up. The numbers added up. 5,500. 6,000. The index rose every week. The 13th month. Hajin began the final phase. 3 of the 9 great clans were secretly tied to him by debt. Mo, Ryu, Kwon. All 3 depended on grain shipments via trade routes that now ran along his roads. He didn't block the routes. He didn't make threats. He simply changed the caravan's schedules. A 2-day delay. Then 3. The grain arrived later. Prices rose. Warehouses emptied. The Mo clan lost 400 ingots in a month due to the delays. Ryu lost 200. Kwon lost 150. They didn't understand where the losses were coming from, because the losses weren't due to theft or war. The losses were in logistics, and no one in Hwalyong took logistics into account, except for one man sitting on cushions with a quill in his left hand. Hajin waited, patiently, just as an accountant waits for the end of the quarter. The numbers were working. Numbers always work. It just takes time. The 13th month. Index 7,800. A number that Harold Minhwa wrote down every week and double-checked every week because she didn't trust her own pen. Hajin sat in his office. A real office. His mother had set aside 3 rooms for him in the eastern wing. A workroom, a bedroom, an archive. The archive was the largest. Bookcases, shelves, scrolls, reports, maps. The registry had taken on a physical form, thousands of pages. Bora managed the archive the way a general manages his headquarters. 12 scribes worked in shifts, sorting, copying, cross-checking. 3 copies of every document. The original in the archive. A copy with Minhwa. A copy in a hiding place known only to Hajin and Bora. Morning. Sori arrived with a report that changed everything. Hongrion had received a visitor during the night. A man. Not from the palace. Not from the capital. The man had come from the south, in a closed carriage, without clan insignia. Sori hadn't seen his face, but she had seen his hands. 2 fingers were missing from his right hand, the index and middle fingers. Hajin froze. The registrar went through the files. A man. The South. 2 missing fingers. The Mo clan. Southern Territories. The Mo clan's treasurer. Koji-san. 57 years old. Lost his fingers in a blacksmith's workshop in his youth. The only person who keeps the Mo clan's real books. Not the official ones, the real ones. Hongrion summoned her treasurer. Why? Hajin ran through 3 possibilities. First, Hongrion is preparing for a financial war, counting reserves. Second, Hongrion is preparing to flee, moving assets out. Third, Hongrion is preparing for a final strike, gathering everything into one fist. Sori added a detail. After the treasurer's visit, Hongrion summoned the commander of the clan guard. 6 female warriors, each at the 4th seal. Total weight, 24. They arrived in the capital that morning, fully armed. Not the third option. The third and second at the same time. Hongrion was preparing both a strike and an escape route. Hajin summoned Cho Yuna, 5th seal, the Empress's personal guard. He asked how many people she could gather in 2 hours. Yuna replied, 12 of the Empress's guards. Total weight, 48. Enough to face Hongryon's 6 groups of 4. But Hajin didn't want to fight. A fight means chaos. Chaos means a loss of control. Control is all he has. He chose a different path. He summoned Bora. He told her to bring the folder. Bora knew which one. She brought it in 3 minutes. A thick one. Red cover, no label. Inside, a complete financial audit of the Mo clan. 6 months of work. 3 scribes, 40 sources. A set of parallel accounts pieced together bit by bit from trade receipts, customs records, and intercepted correspondence. The Mo clan. Total debt, 11,000 ingots. A debt that didn't exist in the official books. Because Treasurer Koji-san kept 2 sets of accounts. One for the council. The clean one. One for Hongrion. The real one. Hongrion took out loans from trading houses using the clan's lands as collateral. The money went toward maintaining a network of spies, bribing judges, poisons, assassinations, buying votes. 11,000 ingots. More than the annual income of the 2 great clans. The Mo clan was bankrupt. Officially, it was thriving. In reality, it was sinking. And the only person who knew this besides Hongrion and her treasurer was Hajin. He sent a note, not to Hongrion, but to her mother, the head of the Mo clan, old Mo Jinhei. The 5th seal, 72 years old, the woman who gave birth to Hongrion and Yonhee, Hajin's grandmother, who had remained silent for 30 years while one daughter maimed the son of the other. The note was short. Grandmother, your clan owes 11,000 ingots. Your daughter Hongrion has mortgaged your lands. Documents are attached. Grandson. He attached 3 pages from the folder. Not everything. 3 pages. Enough for the old woman to grasp the scale of it. Enough to terrify her. Not enough for her to figure out where the leak came from. The reply came a day later. Not a note, a messenger. Mo Jinhei demanded an immediate meeting with her grandson. The meeting took place in the Empress's chambers. Neutral territory. Yonhee was present, a sword on her lap. Jinhei entered, small, thin, eyes like Hongrion's, but older and more vicious. She looked at her grandson, at his hands, at his cane, at his pale face. She hadn't seen him since the day his tendons were severed. She had remained silent then. She remained silent now, too, about the tendons. She asked about the debts. Hajin showed her the folder, the whole thing. 200 pages. Jinhei read for an hour, in silence. Yonhee looked at her mother. Her mother stared at the numbers. The numbers stared into the abyss. 11,000. The land was mortgaged. If the creditors demanded repayment, the Mo clan would lose 4 of its 7 provinces. It would go from being a great clan to a small one. It would be dropped from the top 9. Disgrace is worse than death. Jinhei closed the folder. She looked at her grandson. She asked what he wanted. Hajin replied, "The arrest of Mo Hong-ryon, carried out by the Mo clan itself, not by the crown, by the clan. For embezzlement of clan funds, for conspiracy against the dynasty, for maiming the heir. 3 charges, each one confirmed by documents." Jinhei remained silent. Then she asked what would happen to the debts. Hajin replied, "The registry will buy out the Mo clan's promissory notes. All 11,000. In exchange for restructuring, a 10-year installment plan. At 2% interest. The Mo clan will retain its lands, retain its seat on the council, retain its dignity. It will lose only Hong-ryon." Jinhei looked at Yeonhee. Yeonhee was staring at the wall. Mother and daughter. One gave birth to a regent who maimed children. The other gave birth to a child who was maimed. Between them were numbers written in that child's hand. Jinhei nodded. One word. Yes. Yeonhee closed her eyes. The sword on her lap clinked. Hajin allowed himself nothing. No relief, no triumph. He turned to Bora and dictated an order to restructure the Mo clan's debt. The first document in the registry signed by 2 great clans simultaneously. Soral and Mo. Index, 8,200. The operation began at night. The Mo clan guard, the very same 6 groups of 4 that Hong-ryon had summoned for the strike. They entered her chambers. By order of Mo Jinhei, head of the Mo clan. Not the crown, the clan. Her own clan. Her own mother. Hong-ryon did not resist. The 6th seal was ablaze. She could have killed all 6 of them, at once, with her bare hands. But she saw her mother's seal on the order, and she stopped. Because even Mo Hong-ryon would not raise a hand against the head of her own lineage. This is the end. Not death. Not honor. The lineage. A blow to the lineage is worse than a blow to the throat. They led her away. In a closed carriage, without insignia, at night, through the south gate, to the Mo family castle, under house arrest. Hajin stood by the window, alone. Night. Rain. He watched as the carriage drove out of the palace gates, a tiny dot in the darkness. The woman who, 14 months ago, had adjusted his collar with a motherly gesture and ordered his tendons to be severed. He stood there, 30 seconds, without his cane. His legs held him up. They ached, but they held him up. The 14th month, the great hall of the 9 matriarchs, full. All 9 clans, all the retinues, all the guards, all the scribes, all the heralds. The hall couldn't hold everyone. People stood in the corridors, on the balconies, by the windows. For the first time in the history of the court, ordinary townspeople attended a council session. Merchants, artisans, students from the school of arithmetic. They stood behind the railing and remained silent. No one had invited them. They came on their own. Because word had spread 2 days earlier. Princess Mo Hong-ryon was to be put on trial. Empress Soral Hajin sat on the throne, the 7th seal, the sword in its sheath. Not on the armrest, in its sheath. Today, a sword is not needed. Today, paper is needed. Mo Hong-ryon stood in the center of the hall, in the Mo clan's mourning garments, white silk with a gray border, the attire of the accused. Her own mother had dressed her in it. Mo Jinhei sat in the Mo clan's seat, 72 years old, a gaunt face, eyes as cold as stone. She did not look at her daughter. She stared at the wall. Standing next to Jinhei was Baek Sol-ren, former leader of the Iron Line, former second in command of the empire. Now she sat in the seat of a junior advisor, stripped of her rank. Her 7th seal glowed dimly, like an extinguished candle that still smolders. She had paid for the silence of the registry, her position, her dignity, everything except her life. Jinhei stood up. Her voice was old, Steady. She read out the charges. Embezzlement of clan funds amounting to 11,000 silver ingots.
Hongrian stood upright. She listened. Her face was impassive, beautiful, bony, with the habit of tilting her head to one side. She tilted her head. Even now. A habit. A conspiracy against the Soral dynasty, manifested in the maiming of Crown Prince Hajin by severing his tendons with the poisoned Sunyan. The hall gasped. Not because of the news. Everyone knew. But it was one thing to know. It was quite another to hear it in the voice of the accused's mother before a full hall, under the herald's pen. Ritual impurity, manifested in the use of temple privileges to initiate a false blood trial in circumvention of dynastic protocol. 3 charges, each backed by documents. The folders lay on the herald's table, red covers. Minhua recorded everything, every charge, every page, every signature. The witnesses came forward one after another. Ko Ji-san, treasurer of the Mo clan, missing 2 fingers on his right hand. He spoke for 2 hours, quietly, monotonously. He listed sums, dates, names, who Hongrian had paid, for what, how much, which judges she had bribed, which spies she had maintained, which poisons she had ordered. Every word fell into the silence of the hall like a stone into a well. Hongrian listened and did not move. Only her head was tilted to one side. Only her eyes were fixed straight ahead. She was not looking at her mother, not at the witnesses. She was looking at the door, waiting. The door opened. Hajin entered on his own, without a stretcher, limping, leaning on a cane, but on his own. The hall fell silent. They had last seen him on a stretcher, lying down, crippled. Now he was walking, slowly. Every step cost him pain that he did not show. His left leg moved. His right dragged behind him. His cane tapped against the stone floor. Tap, step, tap, step. The only sound in a hall of 300 people. He wore a simple gray scribe's robe. No insignia, no gold, no embroidery. The robe of a man who counts, not a man who rules. He approached Hongrian. She was a head taller than him, broader in the shoulders. Her 6th seal was ablaze. His seal was absent. A man, a 0. She looked down on him, just as she had 14 months ago, when she was adjusting her collar. He stopped in front of her, close, so close that she could hear his breath. He spoke softly, only to her, in a whisper that only she could hear. He said the porridge had gone cold, that he'd eaten it all. Hongrian blinked. Once. The only time during the entire session. Then Hajin turned to face the chamber. His voice was steady, loud. He said he wasn't asking for execution, that he wasn't asking for disgrace, that he was asking for one thing. Let her be taken to Mo Castle. Let them give her a quill, paper, an abacus. Let her spend the rest of her life counting what her nephew had built. Let her count every road, every bridge, every school, every scribe, every ingot, every unit of the index. Let her count, every day, year after year. It will be worse than death. The chamber was silent. Hongrian looked at him. In her eyes was something the registry could not count. Not fear, not hatred, recognition. She recognized something in him. Something that hadn't been there 14 months ago. Something that doesn't exist in boys. She opened her mouth. She said one thing. That he wasn't her nephew. That she didn't know what he was. But that it was more terrifying than any seal. Hajin didn't answer. He turned to Minhua. He nodded. Minhua stood up. Her hands were trembling. Her voice trembled. She knew what she was doing. The entire hall knew. She took a deep breath, and she spoke. Regent Soral Hajin's control index, 12,000. Pause. The weight of the Soral dynasty's seals, 7,800. A longer pause. The regent surpasses the dynasty, for the first time, in history. Hualmio's control index. The number was announced. Higher than the power figures. Silence.
So complete that you could hear the hall breathing. 300 people, 600 lungs, a single silence. Then, Pek Solran, in the junior advisor's seat, the seventh seal, hawk-like eyes. She stood up and bowed, deeply, to the waist. The seventh seal bowed to a man without a seal. The second time in her life. The first was at night, in front of 3 witnesses. This one, in front of 300. Then Cho Nam-hee, the fifth seal. She stood up. She bowed. Ma Song-yun, the fourth seal. Nam Yeon-ji, the fifth seal. Han Sua, the third seal. Jung Min-soo, the fourth seal. One after another, the 6 matriarchs, then their retinues, then the guards, then the scribes, then the people at the railing, merchants, artisans, the girls from the school of arithmetic. A wave, like the tide, silent, unstoppable. The entire hall, standing, bowing, before a young boy in a gray robe with a cane. Hong Ryeon stood alone, upright, unbowed. The sixth seal, the last one standing in the hall where everyone else had bowed. She looked at her nephew. He looked at her. Their eyes met. She did not look away. Neither did he. The Mo clan's female guards approached. They took her by the arms, led her to the door. She walked straight ahead, back straight, head tilted to one side, until the very last step, until her very last breath in that hall. She was Mo Hong Ryeon. 6, the first seal, and she did not bow. The door closed behind her. Hajin stood there, without a cane, without support. His legs held him up. 30 seconds, 40, a minute. He stood for a minute, before a hall that, for the first time in Hwalmyeon's history, had bowed to a number rather than to a sword. The night after the trial, the palace slept. Guards at their posts, torches in the corridors. The silence that comes after the world has changed but hasn't yet realized it. Hajin sat in his office, alone. Bora had gone to sleep, for the first time in a week. Sori stood behind the door, out of habit. Cho Yuna patrolled the corridor. The fifth seal, routine. The world had returned to its routine. But the world was different. On the table in front of Hajin lay a map of Hwalmyeon. 64 provinces, 9 great clans. No, 8. The Mo clan had lost its vote in the council pending the investigation. Baek Solran had been stripped of her rank. The Iron Line was dead. The Council of 9 had become the Council of 8, and 5 of its votes belonged to women who owed him a debt. Not in silver. Worse, a debt to the future. Their roads ran over his stone. Their letters passed through his postal service. Their scribes were educated in his schools. Their budgets were calculated using his methods. He hadn't seized power. He had become the infrastructure. And infrastructure cannot be overthrown. It can only be shut down. But shutting down the roads means shutting down trade. Shutting down the postal service means shutting down governance. Shutting down schools means shutting down the future. No one would shut down their own future for the sake of pride. Not even the warrior women of the seventh seal. Hajin picked up a pen, with his left hand. He wrote on a blank sheet of paper. Results. Month 14. Administration Index, 12,000. Mobility, 70%. Provinces under control, 6. Schools of calculation, 4. Graduates, 172. Postal routes, 7. Road length, 63 RI. Bridges, 29. Allies on the council, 5 out of 8. Registry revenue, 4,000 ingots per year. Expenses, 3,200. Balance, plus 800. A surplus for the first time. He set down his pen. He looked at the numbers. Han Do-yeon inside him nodded. The numbers added up. The balance was positive. The system was working. The system he had built from nothing, from a windowless storeroom. from a single finger that could move, from a woman with a bad knee, from a girl with calluses on her hands, from an old man who had been repairing wheels for 15 years, from a trader who knew he loved honey, from these details, these people, these numbers, the state. He leaned back against the pillows. He allowed himself 10 seconds. 10 seconds of silence in which there was no arithmetic, just silence, just night, just a boy who would turn 15 tomorrow. 10 seconds passed. He sat up straight. Because the boy was 15 and Han Do-yeon was 42, and a 42-year-old analyst doesn't allow himself more than 10 seconds. The door opened. Not Sori, not Yuna. They would have knocked. This one didn't knock. A man, tall, thin, a black robe without insignia, an unfamiliar face, age indeterminate, maybe 30, maybe 50, dark eyes, calm. The eyes of a man who has come a very long way and is not surprised by what he sees at the end. Hajin didn't flinch. The registry spun around instantly. A man, unescorted. He walked past Sori, past Yuna. Yuna's fifth seal did not stop him. That meant she did not perceive a threat, or she did not see him. The latter was worse. The guest bowed, deeply, respectfully, and spoke, in a language that didn't exist in this world, in Korean. 21st century Korean, pure, soul style, with the accent of an educated man. He said, "Chancellor Han Do-yeon, the Hoguk Empire remembers. There are 6 of us left, and your aunt isn't the worst thing coming after you." Hajin sat motionless. His expression didn't change. His hands were on the table, his left hand on the deck, his right hand on the map. Inside, everything stopped for a single second. Then it started up again. Faster. The registry was processing. Hoguk, an ancient civilization, destroyed 800 years ago. Male scholars who built a state surpassing any empire of swords. The seal of blood. A restraining seal imposed on the descendants of the survivors. Not a blessing, a curse. An anti-governance curse disguised as a gift. The higher the seal, the stronger the warrior and the weaker her ability to see the state as a system. That is why. That is why the matriarchs could not resolve the dispute over the Salt Lake for 20 years. Not because they were foolish, because the seal blocked institutional thinking. That is why Hanryeon sincerely believed that maiming her nephew was the right thing to do. The 6th seal. The 6th level of blindness to systemic complexity. She could not see it any other way. Physically, magically. That's why he could. A man. Without the seal. A direct descendant of the last chancellor of Hoguk. The frailty of his bloodline. Not a curse. A side effect of the registry's gift, which was born in every generation, but could not awaken without a mind capable of understanding it. Until Han Do-yeon, a 42-year-old analyst with 243 classified reports in his head. The guest placed a map on the table. A large one. A detailed one. At Ent. Not Hwalyong. The entire continent. Hwalyong was a small spot in the lower left corner. 13 territories. All female empires. All under the seal of blood. All built on the ruins of Hoguk. All ruled by warrior women who cannot see beyond the tip of their swords because 800 years ago, someone decided that male scholars were too dangerous and sealed away their descendants. All of them. Except for 6. The 6 who remembered. The 6 in whom the register awoke. In different bodies. In different empires. In different years. But all with the same set of knowledge. Public administration. Cartography. Epidemiology. Double-entry bookkeeping. Game theory. 6 chancellors of a dead civilization in the bodies of boys and old men scattered across a continent where women with magical seals have been slaughtering one another for centuries over pastures, unaware that their power is a cage. The guest said that 2 of the 6 are already dead, killed. One of the 13 empires discovered its chancellor and executed him. Publicly. Another perished while attempting to escape. 4 are alive, including Hajin. The guest said there is a force that knows of them, a force that is hunting them, a force that has found 2 and will find the rest. Not the matriarchs, not the clans, not the warrior women. Something else, older than the seal, older than Hoguk. That which imposed the seal 800 years ago. That which created a system in which women are strong and men are blind. A system that functioned flawlessly for 8 centuries until 6 people with foreign memories appeared. He said this wasn't a war of clans, not a struggle for the throne, not a reform. It was an awakening. And those who had lulled the continent to sleep would not stand by and watch as it was awakened. He said that Aunt Hajina wasn't the worst thing coming after him, and he fell silent. Hajin stared at the map. 13 empires, 12 of which he didn't know. 4 allies he hadn't seen, an enemy he couldn't count. The registry was silent. For the first time in 14 months, he had no data, no files. There were no columns. There was a map. There was darkness beyond its edges. And there was a number, 6, which had become 4. He looked up at the guest. The guest was waiting, patiently, like a man who had traveled a very long way and was ready to wait as long as necessary. Hajin looked at the table, at the quill, at the map of Valman. Small, familiar, with his notes, with his roads, with his schools, with his numbers. Then at the large map, unfamiliar, enormous, empty, without a single mark except for 13 names he couldn't read. 14 months ago, he had been lying in a windowless storeroom, unable to move a finger. Now he was sitting in the regent's office, holding a map of the continent in his hands. Between those 2 points lay 12,000 index units, 172 scribes, 63 ri of roads, 1 woman in the castle who would count his numbers for the rest of her life, and 1 bowl of porridge with honey that he remembered every morning. He picked up a quill, pulled a blank sheet of paper closer, looked at the guest, spoke evenly, quietly, in 21st century Korean, that the guest should sit down, to tell everything from the beginning, that he had the night, and the register. The guest sat down. Hajin opened a new page, blank, white, without a single digit. The quill touched the paper. He wrote the first word, continent, and began counting anew.